Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 127. We're coming to you from a secret location, a nuclear fallout bunker in Southern California, also known as Casa de Kyle. We are actually...
It's a terrible above-ground bunker, as you can see from the window.
We are at Matt Kyle's house, and he very graciously offered for us to do the show here. So make sure you give him your thanks in the chat. It's really been a huge help. I have been looking for studios. I just have not gotten lucky and found the right one yet. I'm going to continue to do that. But for the immediate future, we're going to be here. Probably going to do our E3 stuff here unless I get lucky in the next couple weeks.
Maybe we'll do that on the couch.
Yeah, we'll have, I mean, we're in a house here instead of our small studio, so there's a number of different shots that we can set up. And
it might be a little echoey because of the lack of furniture.
Yeah,
so.
The ceilings in here are like 20 feet high.
Yeah, so I apologize for the bad acoustics. I don't think they're great.
Well, I think the mics hopefully pick up our voice before the echo, hopefully.
Yeah.
But we're going to do our best to make sure the sound's good. I will say this much. We only have one camera today. This is the first time we've set up everything here, and we did not have cables that were long enough to hook everything up, so it's just one camera for our first episode from here. Hopefully you guys can forgive us. We still have B-roll and our graphics and everything, but...
better than no episode.
It's better than no episode at all. Although I will say this, trying to put together the episode today, I wondered if we should have an episode at all.
It's been a slow 8-9 days.
Yeah, we haven't done an episode in like 8 days now. And it's not a lot has happened. So we did put together a bunch of topics for you guys. I actually will promise this time, this will be one of the shortest episodes. I think you can agree with that, Matt, looking at the rundown.
Well, we always say that.
Yeah.
But it really is pretty short. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 things?
No, there's only 5 topics today.
Oh, 5, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I was misreading. One of them's got a long set of notes down there.
Well, it is a Monday night. Don't want to keep people up too late. It's just the start of the week. Don't want to wear you guys out before you have to get on and do your thing at your job or at school or whatever. So let's get on with the show. GameFace 127. We're going to kick things off with what...
Oh, and if people in the chat could keep Shane updated on the Penguins.
No.
Yeah.
Only if they win.
Shane doesn't have. I'm the only one that can see the chat right now, so just tell me, and I'll decide whether or not to tell him.
Yeah, but then if you don't tell me anything, I'm going to know that they
I'm
lost
not going to tell you
anyway,
anything.
so.
Maybe I just don't forget because I don't care about hockey. I don't know. You don't know. You know what I'm doing.
That's true. All right, well, let's get on with our first topic. Undoubtedly, the biggest story of the week is essentially a trailer for Red Dead Redemption 2. Really, the story wasn't the trailer. The trailer's great, by the way. But really the story is that IGN was fortunate enough to go and check out the game being played. They got to see a 40-minute demo at Rockstar North. IGN UK, I believe, went up and did it. And from that, we got really the first details of how the game plays and some of the more minute elements of the game.
Because you didn't get any of that from the trailer.
Yeah, I guess you did.
I mean, there's no gameplay in this. It's in-engine.
Right.
Like, it's the Rockstar thing, though. You get, like, 3 world-building trailers, and then, like, right before release, you finally get a gameplay trailer.
Well, I'll say this. Red Dead 1, by the time the game came out, they had completely blown it out. They did this series of, like, vignettes that were all focused on the different gameplay elements. So I'm guessing by the time the game is released in October, we'll probably have a really good idea of what it's about as far as how you play it. But the initial details that we have, there's quite a few. I think the first thing that kind of caught my eye was how you interact with NPCs in the world. So if you have your gun holstered or you have your gun out, it completely affects how all the citizens in the game end up reacting to you. Obviously, if it's out, they're a lot more skittish. Some of them will actually run away if they see you with your gun out. If you have it holstered, they're much more likely to interact with you. And that is a change from the first game. I will say this. So I was here last week at Matt's house, and he showed me Red Dead 1 running on Xbox One X, and it was very impressive. Holy cow.
It's pretty ridiculous for an 8-year-old game
to look
like that.
Really how good that game looked when you can really see what they built for it. This trailer did not come out in 4K. Were you surprised about that?
A little bit. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems like the new standard, really. Like, especially with Rockstar, like, it looks this good already. Why not go to the maximum with it?
I'm also assuming that the in-engine footage that they're showing is probably running on an X or a PS4 Pro.
Yeah, if not like a dev kit with a little more oomph to it. They usually have more RAM.
It was interesting that they showed it to IGN on a base PS4. which I found pretty peculiar.
Well, PS4 I know is like they have some kind of deal with online stuff with them. Like that's the kind of the lead platform. I will probably still get it on Xbox One X.
Oh yeah, why not?
So I feel like it's going to be a little. But then you never know. Like that's the thing. Is like that's why Digital Foundry is one of the most valuable places going right now, because like you never know what the performance is going to be like on these multi-platform games.
It is all over the
games.
map. It tends to be.
You just can't tell anymore. So like you hit the point where if I were just sort of buying for myself and not to like be on a show or talk about it in the press, I would probably be waiting a week until I got feedback from Digital Foundry and these pixel counters and these frame rate trackers to like be sure that I was getting the best version.
Well, I mean, it could be a case too where Digital Foundry gets it early and they can still kind of put up their stuff before it comes out, at least hopefully.
I mean, they're pretty fast. They're usually pretty fast. So like a lot of times they wait for the day one patch,
right?
Which is important. And I can see them doing that with this because like the odds that Rockstar would tell them that something like that is coming is pretty much zero.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to wait and see how it runs day one.
Yep. A couple other things IGN talked about. LA Noire conversation style. So when you interact with someone in the game, you get like the 4 button prompts with the 4 different options, and you can kind of guide the conversation, and you can manipulate people. It is pretty interesting how Rockstar integrated that sort of conversation tree into Red Dead.
Yeah, well, they never waste anything.
Yeah.
That's one thing Rockstar is famous for, is like they'll...
That's the best part of LA Noire, by the way. So
yeah, and even like table tennis was kind of a test bed for physics stuff.
It was, yeah.
I mean, they're always thinking ahead.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me they would incorporate that. It's a nice thing that any extra levels of like interaction with the world. Certainly after having played Red Dead again this past spring. Anything like that is welcome, because like it was a little sad that like you could walk through these towns and all these people, and like really the only option you had was walk past them, bump into them, or pull your gun and freak them out.
Right.
Like, that was the only things you could really do.
How do you feel about more of like an adventure style conversation tree being in an action game? Does it concern you at all that it may slow things down a little bit and kind of mess with the pacing?
No, I mean it's like the Rockstar games have always been kind of very story heavy and narrative and character focused. So expanding that side of things seems to make sense to me.
What else? So the camp is a big part of the game, and it's kind of like your home base, but you're semi-responsible for everyone in your camp as far as if they're fed, if they're safe. And Rockstar did make a point to say, look, it's not like you have to micromanage your camp. You can go off on a 3-day quest to hunt or whatever you want. The only thing is when you come back, there may be some salty people there waiting to converse with you. And then also when you come back, you're probably going to have to go out and hunt to make sure that you get food to fill it up. How do you feel about that kind of camp maintenance, again, in an action game?
I don't know. It's the whole thing State of Decay is based on, so I dig that. As long as it doesn't become kind of like a leash as opposed to another thing to do. That's the balance. It's like when does this bonus feature become
a survival game?
Interference, basically.
Because look, I'm not a big survival game fan. I've played a few that I've liked. I don't know if I've ever played any that I really loved. But it sounds like from what Rockstar said about it, it's not going to be a crux of the game. It's something that you can kind of work with as much or as little as you want to.
Yeah, it's Rockstar, and they know they're...
Because there are bonuses, by the way, for keeping your camp well maintained.
But they're building this game for the teeming masses, the millions and millions of people who will presumably buy this. And you're not going to turn this thing into, DayZ.
Right.
It's going to be pretty light, I think.
I like the approach, though, where you don't have to do it to make progress through the game, but if you do, then you get bonuses that somebody who doesn't do it would not get.
Yeah, that's probably the right way to do it, especially in a game that has like such widespread mainstream appeal. Like there's just going to be people that don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm probably one of them.
But penalizing someone for it is probably not the right way to go.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, you don't get these extra things.
And hunting is a big part of the game as well. And one of the things that IGN remarked on was how gory the hunting stuff is. Like you can kill a rabbit, and then there's like one move that you use to just like strip the skin off of the rabbit, and the carcass just kind of falls out. And then they were talking about they shot a deer, and the deer ran away, and they tracked it just like you really track it. They followed the blood trail and found the deer, and then they found the deer, and they said it was literally one of the saddest things they've ever seen in video games. The deer is like moaning and crying and like dragging itself away, and they had to come up and like put the deer out of its misery. How do you feel about that? How do you think
I already did that in God of War.
animal advocates will feel about that?
Well, they're not real animals, so
Right.
I don't think it matters.
That doesn't matter, though, Matt. You know that.
Well, it doesn't matter to PETA.
The guns aren't real in games either.
But PETA's crazy, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll be just somebody will complain about that from PETA, and no one will care. Whatever.
It could get mainstream press pickup.
It's hunting. Like half the country does it anyway.
Right.
I mean, it's not like it's not like it's some kind of daring.
And that really happens.
Fantastical
by the way.
imagine.
That happens.
I mean, that's the opening scene of God of War. We saw that at E3 even last year, and no one cared. I mean, people cared because it's an effective scene, but no one raised a stink about, oh my God, they showed a child kill a caribou or whatever that was.
Well, one thing that's cool about how the hunting works is that.
I don't think I'll be doing a lot of hunting if I don't have to, because that doesn't sound a lot of fun. I mean, I basically stopped playing Monster Hunter because of that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they're going the opposite direction of like Far Cry, where Far Cry like removed the skinning animations and all the kind of like the
gory details.
The gory details of hunting these animals, and it made hunting them like not a priority really anymore outside of like these little challenges. Rockstar obviously doesn't surprise me. Rockstar's going the opposite direction of that, because Rockstar seems to strive for not necessarily realism, but like believability. Like they strive for kind of like this verisimilitude, sort of, where like it's not realistic, but you can believe it's real, which is kind of a different thing.
The other thing that's cool about how they're handling the hunting, though, is to encourage you to end up ultimately not seeing these disturbing scenes, as you get rewarded for clean kills. So if you use your bow, that will help. You'll get more points when you turn in the pelt. And so that will incentivize you to, one, use a bow instead of a gun, but two, to make sure that when you do kill animals, you're killing them with a clean shot through the lungs or the heart, instead of maiming them, hitting them in the leg or something like that, where they would end up limping away or something like that. So it seems like, to me, Rockstar has kind of put these controversial elements in its games, like it always does, but it's found ways to encourage the player to not explore them, or maybe not abuse them. Of course, people will.
Well, I mean,
you're gonna have the people who just intentionally shoot the deer in like the leg or whatever to see what happens,
and just poke it with a knife. And
right.
I mean, I don't find that controversial. I don't think that's it's hunting. It's just what
absolutely.
happens. And like, the answer to that, if anybody does complain, is basically like, well, either don't do it or get better at it.
Yeah.
So, the Dark Souls, the Dark Souls answer.
Yep. Here's the thing I like the most about what had been uncovered with that meeting is the way they've changed how the horse works. But I think this may be controversial. Some people may not like this. So in the last game, your horse was just like this disposable vehicle. You never really built a relationship with it. If it died or something happened to it, you just got another one and went on your way.
Yep, you just use the certificate again.
Exactly. The way it works in Red Dead 2 is, as you use a single horse, you build a relationship with that horse. And so the example that they gave was, say you're crossing a stream on your horse, and a bear comes up. When you first start forming your relationship with the horse will get really skittish and you can't control the horse. After you use that same horse for a long period of time, it becomes much more calm and much more easy to control as time goes on. If a horse gets hurt, you have to, quote unquote, heal the horse. You have to find bandages or whatever to heal the horse back to health, and you only have so much time before the horse bleeds out. And if the horse bleeds out, it dies, and you have to find yourself another horse, and you have to begin that relationship building all over again.
Or you reload the save.
Yeah, I guess you could.
Which is probably what I would
what
do.
Most people would do. Yeah. If I spent 20-some hours on a horse, I'm not going to just let that horse die.
I'm not letting the horse die just because you decided to spawn a cougar on me.
Right. Which, in this game, it absolutely could happen.
I mean, that's what the northern part of the map was in Red Dead 1, was like, cougar spawning death simulator, basically. I lost my horse constantly to just like rampaging cougars out of nowhere. So
it could be a case too where Rockstar's built the game with that in mind.
Yeah, I think
they
probably pull
tones
back
that stuff
on
down
that.
a little bit. But I like that idea. I like building relationships with creatures in games in general.
That makes sense. I mean, they kind of took a stab at that in GTA 5, where like trying to let you customize your car, and like each character had their own car with different strengths and weaknesses, and like I feel like it didn't really get where most of GTA 5 didn't really get where they wanted it to get. I felt like a lot of GTA 5's, like what the systems they planned ended up in GTA Online, like fully fleshed out in GTA Online, whereas like you can see sort of the skeleton for what they were going to build on it in single player and just never did it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how that works. I like the idea. In fact, I was just finishing playing The Witcher 3 again, and I was impressed having played everything. I'd never played it with all the DLC in place in the first place, so it's playing as like one big arc. It was interesting because by the Blood and Wine expansion, like Geralt's actually pretty attached to his horse.
Yeah.
Which is funny because if you know the backstory, and he even mentions it in the game, but also in the books, he just names all his horses Roach. Because they die so often, like there's no reason.
Why give it a name?
But he gets attached to the horse in the game, and like by the end, I was like, oh, I should build a stable in my new house for Roach. And this is like, and like wants to put Roach in the painting that some guy makes of him and stuff. And like, there's a whole quest where he takes this hallucinogen and can talk to the horse, and the horse can talk back. And the horse, for some reason, has a man's voice, even though it's a girl. And like there's some pretty funny stuff, and like it acknowledges sort of the stuff they've gone through, and there's a whole thing where he's like, hey, when I whistle for you, and like sometimes you cross an ocean to get to me, but then you get hung up on a tiny little fence post. Like, what's that about? And Roach just goes, hey man, nobody's good at everything. Like.
But it's also, here's the other thing.
So I like that. You would develop a bond with this animal that you've been through all this crazy stuff with.
It's realistic.
So
I mean, cowboys back in the Old West, their horses were their best friends. I mean,
don't forget, like, it's kind of a cliche or a joke to us, but like, if you stole a horse, that was a capital crime back then.
You'd be hung.
Like you'd be hung, because like if you steal a man's horse, you can leave him. You're basically leaving him to die.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like that was your lifeline to civilization. Was that horse?
Yeah. So I'm glad Rockstar's picked up on that. I think that could become a key, and also it could be a plot device that could deliver some pretty heavy moments for the player as well. So I think it's just a good
As anyone
change.
who's played Shadow of the Colossus can tell you.
Absolutely. And then really the final thing that they kind of showed IGN and they talked about was on horseback gunfights. Huge part of the game. In the past, I've not liked combat on horseback in video games.
It's a little tough. I mean, Red Dead 1 did it okay. It was more kind of rudimentary, just sort of like, oh, somebody's near you on a horse, hold the trigger, lock on, shoot them off. Yeah. Like, it was pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
This looks like it's got a little more complexity to it. Maybe you don't have to babysit the horse quite as much, which may tie into...
Well, provided you've built that relationship.
It knows what you want to do.
And that could be really, like, one of the big deals about building that relationship is if your reticle becomes much more level when riding on horseback.
Well, then I start to wonder, like, is the horse relationship also a factor online?
That's true.
Like, will you have a horse online that, like, will someone who has a relationship with their horse that's solid and well-founded, are they going to have an advantage over someone who's not been nurturing their horse properly?
That's a good idea. Battlefield 1 did horses pretty well, I thought, for a game that I never would expect to be able to do horses very well. Yeah. Generally, that studio is not good at sort of anything other than shooting.
No, they do vehicles pretty well.
Yeah, well, they do vehicles real well, yeah. But, and I guess ultimately the horse really is just a vehicle.
Just another vehicle. It's just a motorcycle with legs. Really.
Yeah. So with all this in mind, has this changed? Or, I mean, we're both already really excited for this game, but has it boosted your interest in it?
I mean, I think the LA Noire conversation stuff boosts my interest just in the sense that I was kind of hoping it would be a little more in-depth than your sort of usual GTA clone. It's been 8 years. You got to evolve it. I think GTA 5, while I liked it a lot, and I did play it twice, I'm part of the problem with the sales charts. I bought it twice. I bought it for 360, and then I bought it for PS4.
You're not alone.
Apparently, I don't know if people keep losing their copies of it or what. Like that.
It did finally drop out of the top 10 in the UK this week.
Amazing.
That is amazing. It's been on the chart in the top 10 for like the last 3 years or something.
And so I liked it.
But finally they've wrung the market dry.
I just felt like it didn't quite go as far as I wanted it to in terms of kind of developing the world and developing the depth of the heist mechanics and sort of the relationships with the characters. But you could see sort of the beginnings of something like that, and I was like kind of hoping Red Dead 2 would take some of that and run with it, and it looks like they are. So I think, and while GTA and like Rockstar always gets praised for like the living worlds or like that, but I feel like they've fallen a little bit behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of what you can, what kind of thing, in terms of the depth of character in a game like Witcher 3, or in terms of of just the interactivity and the surprise that comes from the physics of the world, like in Breath of the Wild. I think they've been surpassed in multiple directions. And I was hoping that they would, be willing to sort of step up and try to move forward with it, as opposed to just sort of sitting back and saying, "Hey, we're Rockstar, people are going to buy it anyway," which is probably true.
Yes, absolutely true.
But it's good to see them sort of moving this forward a bit.
I am pleasantly surprised by these initial impressions. I was with you. I was like, if they just make GTA 5 in the West, which is basically what the first Red Dead was. It was GTA 4 in the West. I didn't know if that was going to be good enough, because you're right, the bar has been raised since they've put out their last open world game. This is encouraging to me. If this is the stuff that Rockstar gave up the first time they really showed the game being played, I think that's really auspicious and encouraging. I think that if that is just what they're willing to show with cracking the door open, what's going to happen? They probably won't be at E3, but what's going to happen in the next 3-4 months as they ramp up to launch? I think they have a lot to divulge if that's what they've given up already. So I'm really, really encouraged by this. I was excited for this game already. I'm even more excited for it now. How long do you think we're going to have to wait till we get more on it?
This is May.
Yeah.
My guess would be we get the gameplay, the full gameplay trailer, sometime near the end of August.
Yeah.
And maybe another story.
Too bad they never deal with E3.
Maybe another story trailer in July. I could see another story trailer somewhere between now and then. But my guess would be probably August. We'll get our next big dose of we haven't seen this before unless we work for IGN.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then October is the release. Or is it November?
It's October.
October.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's about on schedule for what Rockstar has done the last couple of times. Bunch of world building stuff, story stuff, and then you see a full gameplay trailer 2 months before the release.
Yeah.
Seems about right. Maybe one last big story, dramatic trailer that doubles as a TV commercial closer to release.
The only way it ends up at E3 is if Rockstar has forged some kind of a partnership with either Microsoft or Sony.
I think they do with Sony. I think there is a PlayStation relationship happening there. So you might see my feeling would be we'd get a mention. That trailer, this clip from that trailer will pop up in a montage of when Sony does their look at all the stuff we have montage. I feel like we'd see Red Dead in that montage, and we might not see it in Microsoft's.
Or maybe an onstage mention by whoever the host is on the stage at the time.
Some
put
whatever
up the
suit.
logo of the game on the screen,
and they won't show anything. It'll just be Red Dead Redemption 2 coming to you'll get all the stuff for first on PlayStation. And then that. That'll be that.
Even that, I think, is a slim chance.
That's the maximum.
If it's going to show,
that's the absolute maximum.
That's what you're going to get. Absolutely. So
the only other thing you get is if somebody gets drunk with a Rockstar guy in a bar somewhere and says he told me there's Pegasuses. That's all you're going to get. There's no official. They don't have an official presence.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully you guys are excited for Red Dead as we are. Undoubtedly my most anticipated game for the rest of the year right now. Unless something comes at E3, it could be Elder Scrolls is shown at E3 and it's coming out this year.
Yeah, there's some stuff that could be secret that I'm in. But I think Spider-Man's above this to me, just because I feel like Spider-Man's a little bit more of an unknown.
Yeah. There's more X factor there.
I feel like Spider-Man could reach a greater height, or it could fall a lot further. Red Dead 2 feels like as a baseline for how good I expect it to be, and then I think it could get better than that, but I feel like it's not going to be worse than that. Whereas Spider-Man, I feel like I have faith in Insomniac, but there's always the chance that Spider-Man's just not going to be. Not even that it's bad, just not that I want what I wanted.
Right. Insomniac has never put out a bad game. Well, it has put out mediocre.
Put out Fuse.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call that bad. Bad for them.
It's definitely bad for them.
Yeah.
And
it's borderline
pretty bad.
It's right on the fringe.
Fuse is pretty bad.
Yeah. That is what gives me pause.
Yeah.
That one game, and it wasn't that long ago either.
But the other thing was if you talk to them about Fuse when they were making Fuse, they would just be there was no enthusiasm for that game in the run up to launch, and
from anyone.
No, and I think you talked to we've said many times we talked to them about it at Packers Party at E3 a couple both years since they announced it, and they're just thrilled to be working on Spider-Man. Like
their excitement.
And that really
counts.
That counts a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when you're talking about something by the end of it, you're working 70 to 90 hours a week on it.
You've also been working on it for 3
years of your life.
If you're still excited about it, that's a good sign usually.
Yeah, if you're still sitting there saying like, I can't wait for you guys to get your hands on this, and they seem to be, because I would figure we're going to get playable on the floor. At least a little demo thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This year,
or you go to one of the theaters.
You could, but I mean, I feel like it's time. I mean, it's going to be like what, 3 months away. So like, yeah,
they should have a playable
at
demo.
the very least. Let somebody play last year's demo.
Yeah,
like last year's the
I
helicopter
wouldn't even be surprised if something happens at the press conference where Sony's like, and there's a demo live right now on PlayStation
Yeah,
Network.
it could be. I mean, either that or there's going to be a demo that comes like the week. No, there's nothing else. Like putting out with Ant-Man wouldn't make any sense. So yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
that would be a good. I mean, ride that Infinity War wave. I mean, the hype's still going to be there a month later, so be a good deal.
Absolutely. So
you got a lot to prove when you go out to make a new Spider-Man game, because I think at least like our demographic, the hardcore gamer demographic, has that skepticism for a licensed game, no matter how pedigreed it may be.
Yeah.
So like, and people have opinions about Spider-Man games. So we'll see. I think you got to prove it to people.
I'm still Red Dead. Even after all that, I'm still more excited for Red Dead. It could change at E3 though.
Yeah, I'm just a comic nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it could just change by default because Rockstar won't show anything, and presumably I'll get to play or at least check out Spider-Man. So.
Yeah, I mean, also like Rockstar games are kind of like, I'm just not gonna think about you until you show up.
Yeah.
Because like otherwise you're just gonna get frustrated.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, Red Dead 2 looking pretty good. We'll hopefully get more on it soon. Gorgeous, also. Yeah, beautiful. So, we'll see. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about.
Can't wait for the PC version next year.
Yeah, that they still won't talk about.
No,
right?
there's nothing. But like that's what GTA 5 did. So
yeah,
because they don't care. Even as a giant PC advocate, like the sales on PC are not anything close to what they're going to get on console. So
you're going to double dip it, right?
I mean, once the price drops enough.
With the X though.
The X, I mean, look,
it's pretty close to what you're going to get on your PC.
We'll see.
Yeah.
You never know until it happens. It should be. It should be. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the X is running The Witcher 3 pretty close to what I got on PC. I think I showed you both last week, and it's in fact the HDR on the Xbox version actually makes it pop a little more.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see what it turns out to be. Maybe we'll see if I feel like I'm missing anything when the time comes. I still don't have GTA 5 on my PC.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that's because I already played it twice.
Right.
But
it is a monstrous game.
Yeah. I don't need to do that again.
Yeah.
But Red Dead could be more my Red Dead feels like it's expanding the adventure elements, and that tends to hook me. So we'll see.
All right. There you go. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about something Matt and I have been harping on for a long time, and that is Nintendo's insistence on supporting the 3DS, with the Switch now doing gangbusters, selling through the roof. We had contended for a long time, even before the Switch came out, hey, stop developing stuff for 3DS, move everything over to Switch, make sure you have as many games as possible.
Oh, you contend that. I think they should keep supporting the 3DS.
Well, I'm not saying that they make more, that it was a smart financial decision to bail on the 3DS. Mm-hmm. I just think it may, actually, no, I would say that, because I think in the long run, Switch is their play. And I think if they have more games for Switch, 2 years from now, it's going to matter more that the Switch is doing better because people were buying it because the software was there than them trying to drag out the 3DS's lifespan even further.
Switch is doing fine. Like, I'm not worried about it. Like, and they've got how many people own 3DSs? Like 40 million people. I mean, you still have a substantial user base that there's no harm in supporting. And it's not like they're coming fast and furious anymore. Not like the old. They used to put 3DS games out like water.
Well, I didn't even get to the topic, which is that Nintendo said this week that it is going to continue to support the 3DS until the Switch is at one per person in a household.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So are they counting on, say you have 2 kids, that you're going to buy 2 Switches and both of your kids, and then they'll bail on the 3DS?
That's their goal, yeah, because they know that kids all have their own 3DS.
Right. The problem is the Switch costs a heck of a lot more.
Yep. Which makes you wonder what their plan is.
Yeah.
Clearly,
maybe like a price drop.
Yeah, clearly they expect the Switch to be a cheaper object at some point in some form. I don't know whether it's this version with a price drop and a better version supplanting it, like the 3DS, had with the 3DS XL, or
Right.
if you want to call it. I mean, we're saying better version, as in what the marketing would tell you, not like I know the screen of the 3DS XL is not well loved compared to the old one because of resolution problems. Like, it makes me think that at some point you have to make the Switch kind of an impulse buy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which means like the 3DS might be around for a while.
Selling it at like $50 or something.
Well, no, I think you're like 150 bucks is sort of your.
I was talking about the 3DS.
Oh, 3DS, yeah. I don't know. At some point, that hardware's got to be almost free.
Yeah, just give it away.
I mean, I love the 3DS. I have a ton of 3DS games. I still use it. It's still plugged in on my nightstand next to my bed. I play it more than the Switch, probably.
I do not use my 3DS at all anymore.
I mean, it has a lot of games that I just don't have on. I mean, like, it has all the Metroid games, all the Zelda games, except like the later console stuff. It has all the Phoenix Wright games, the Professor Layton stuff. Like, I love
the
all that stuff.
software library is great. I've just played everything on it that I want to play. And what I was getting at a minute ago is that Nintendo is saying it's going to support this, continue to support it. But if you go to Nintendo's official website for the 3DS, it tells a different tale.
Well,
right now, on Nintendo.com, there are, I think, 8 games on the release list for the 3DS.
Yeah, but physical maybe. Like, the digital stuff still has stuff coming out all the time.
On the eShop, you mean?
On the eShop, yeah. The eShop, I think, is kind of a somewhat a missed opportunity because tons of stuff comes out on that thing and I never heard of it.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes I'll load up the eShop to do whatever I need to do and poke around. I'm like, well, look at this. I'll buy like 4 things because I'm like, I didn't know any of this stuff existed, let alone that it came out.
Yeah.
So the eShop is still supporting 3DS pretty strongly. It's just, in terms of physical releases, it's slowed down tremendously. Which just seems kind of like how it should be. You should be making these sort of like more one-off. I mean, frankly, I think that the weird one-off like digital stuff they put out on the 3DS is way more compelling than anything they've got to offer for mobile.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll get to that. But the 3DS, so we were just showing some B-roll of the stuff that's left. There's Luigi's Mansion, there's Sushi Striker, there's a new WarioWare Gold, which has a lot of the same mini games as prior WarioWare games, although I do love this franchise. I absolutely love it. And then there's this new IP that they just announced, and then that's pretty much it. There's really not any big stuff coming for it. So to me, it seems like Nintendo's saying one thing and doing another.
Well, we haven't seen the E3 Direct yet.
Yeah. But I mean, even when they don't say that they're...
And how many things they got coming for the Switch from in-house?
Yeah.
Really, I mean, it's not that much. If you cut out the ports of 3-year-old games for the system, like, you're really looking at...
Still a lot of Wii U games left.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they should probably port just about everything that was ever on the Wii U over. And I think that's also why you're getting that Luigi's Mansion port, is because they have the 3DS version, and they're just going to upscale it.
Right.
And that's another thing to note, that, like, a lot of this stuff could double as a later Switch release with a little work. There's
a lot of work.
Or doubling up. Like, I still think if they put a Pokemon game out on the Switch, it's going to also come out on 3DS. Splitting that user base is probably a poor choice right now. That's going to disappoint a lot of people. I realize there's a lot.
They can make a lot of money on the 3DS version, though.
Oh yeah,
it's hard to leave that money
Absolutely.
on the table.
And I know like there's like a contingent of Nintendo fans that basically think like that don't even seem to like the 3DS anymore because they think it's like the thing preventing the Switch from being super dominant.
That's what I just said, yeah.
But it's like, I just don't think that's the case. Like, they're just not the same thing, like price-wise or game-wise or release-wise. Like, and I just don't think you can't necessarily just transition someone a company that's making a 3DS game to making a Switch game. Like, those are two different beasts in a lot of ways.
It depends on Nintendo's tools. And I thought I remembered reading a year or two ago that Nintendo was basically unifying its pipelines so that you could kind of code develop something on both.
Yeah, that'd be smart. I mean, just to support both sides of this is probably the wisest choice for as long as you can. Although obviously there are limits. I mean, we're not getting Dragon Quest on the 3DS here. And I know there's some people I mean, that's not a big series to me, but like there's people that are very upset they don't get to play kind of the more throwback version. Which I identify with, because while I do think the Switch version is nice, or the PS4 version looks nice. Yeah. I guess we haven't really seen the Switch version, huh? But
I don't think they have.
It's going to be based on the PS4 version. Like, I do get I think the 3DS version is appealing. Like, I like the throwback graphics, the retro look to it. If there was a way, I know there's been speculation about the Switch version that like maybe it will have the 3DS version in it, like you'd be able to switch back and forth, which would be like a nice double pun on what the system's name is.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty cool thing to do. It would also maybe make up for how late it's going to be.
Right.
We'll see. Like,
they haven't announced the release date for the Switch version of that game yet.
No, they just literally said much later.
Right.
That was
Which means it's going to be the last.
Next year sometime. Yeah.
Completed.
They got other fish to fry, I guess. But it's not like they can ignore the Switch because it's too big in Japan.
Yeah, it's too big everywhere.
Yeah, well, it's much bigger in Japan percentage-wise, and since Dragon Quest is
it sells the most in
Japan-centric series, it behooves them to keep the people that want it on Switch, at least in Japan, informed.
To me, I think Nintendo should be at the place where it allows third parties to support Switch or 3DS, and to me, it should shift all its focus over to Switch. Let the third parties come in, make some money on the tail end of its lifespan.
I think the sales for the Switch by the end of this year might tell that tale. Not maybe like I'm sure it'll do well in the fall when Smash Brothers comes out or whatever, but like I do kind of feel like if you look at sort of the tail of the tape through the whole year, it's going to show like we need more releases. We need more regular Nintendo in-house releases.
This E3 is going to be a big sort of benchmark for Nintendo on where it is with third parties. Mm-hmm. You will know by the time E3 is over whether third parties are really on board with Switch or not. Because
I'm pretty sure I know already.
Maybe, but I mean, look, the data.
Ubisoft will have something.
Yeah,
Ubisoft will have something weird.
Because the data's there. The console's selling like crazy. It's
probably
going to take over second from Xbox One in the next like 6 or 7 months.
But the third party stuff doesn't move the way the third parties expect them to move. Clearly.
It doesn't look that way.
You look at that top 20 sales list, and we know that like number 6 or 7 is ARMS, and ARMS sold about 1.2 million at the time they put that out at the end of the year. And then you've got stuff like Skyrim down in like 14th or 15th place. And yeah, that's a port of a 3-year-old game, but so are a lot of the indie games that sell like crazy. Sell better than they ever have on any other platform.
Do you think Nintendo could get at a place where it's kind of in a catch-22, where third parties are like, well, we put this out for it and it didn't sell very well, but the Nintendo's like, but yeah, it's an old game. A lot of people have played already. And the third parties never really give Switch a chance to create software just for it.
I think that's entirely possible. In fact, I think people would argue that that's what third parties have been doing to Nintendo for a long time.
That's what I was going to say. It's been happening that way for a while.
Now, I don't think that the third parties are wrong to do that because in general, third parties want, you want results. You don't want to be experimenting for the benefit of some other company that doesn't benefit you. I mean, like, it's not in EA or Activision's interests to give Nintendo okay, well we'll swallow a couple of bombs until this thing catches on, right? Like that doesn't make any sense for a company like I'm sure the people that run EA are big Nintendo fans, but like that doesn't make any corporate sense to do that, and like expecting them to do anything else. I mean,
it's not really fair though. It's to Switch owners because
but it's business.
What can you expect from a 3-year-old game that's ported for like the third time? I mean. Well, realistically.
Also, that's about as good as you're going to get on that hardware.
Yeah.
I mean, id pulled some miracles with Doom.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everything else is old, And maybe EA was not, arguing in what would I call it? Arguing in good faith by putting out a gimped version of FIFA and then saying, well, I guess that didn't work. It's like,
that's the same old song and dance we get with EA and Nintendo over and over again.
Yeah, I mean EA does that with anything new.
It's the most half-hearted effort, and then EA's like, well, didn't do well. Well, your game wasn't great, and it was. I mean, FIFA. To be fair, if there was one franchise that you would think that's a sports franchise that would do well on Switch, I would think that would be it.
Yeah, but at the same time, it was lacking features, and it was a lesser version of it, and Nintendo didn't have the online in place. And one of the big attractions of FIFA is the online.
It's the biggest attraction.
And it was like
Ultimate Team online.
It was like, yes, it's the right game to release, but it's the right to test the water. But it was the wrong game in the sense that the system wasn't ready for it yet.
Right, and that's Nintendo's fault.
That's Nintendo's fault.
That it did not have the
and EA
online.
is just gonna be like, well, we tried, boom, and like. But then you got people like like Ubisoft, which is putting out this crazy Rabbids Mario game, and who knows what else they've got in the pipeline this year because they've always got some weird thing to put out that's usually specifically for Nintendo systems, not like just like, oh, we're gonna port this other thing. Like, no, we made something for the hardware. And they're the only major third party that really does that.
The lack of online, I think, is hurting.
And it seems to work out okay for them because they've been doing it for 3 generations.
Yeah.
If it didn't make financial sense, they wouldn't keep doing it.
No, you're right. I think the lack of a coherent online strategy from Nintendo is hurting it a lot more than people think.
Yeah.
Because
well, I still think
most of today's biggest games are wired. They're connected in some way.
Most of the last 10 years.
Right.
Games. Look at Splatoon. Splatoon 2 is still climbing the charts. Why? It's online.
It absolutely is. That's where you get your replay value from, generally.
Yeah. I still think the delay on Dark Souls is related to the online.
Absolutely. Why else would it be?
I can't think of it. It seemed to be running fine at the demo they were showing. So, like, what would be the problem except online infrastructure?
I want to know what the problem is. Why is there no online infrastructure? What happened? What changed? It sold well, so that kept them from working on. I don't get it.
I don't know. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing. We know
I mean,
that.
The online infrastructure for Wii U worked okay. Like, it's good enough to get third parties on board.
But it's Nintendo. Everything's gonna be proprietary and work a certain way, and it has to be that. And they've got they bring in DNA to do that. And I don't know. Maybe they haven't worked on something of that scale, at least from a hardware perspective. I don't know what their history is on that. And it's like, look, even people that have been doing this forever. Like, look at what happened to Sea of Thieves launch night.
Right.
Like, Microsoft's been doing online stuff for 13 years as their bread and butter, and it still didn't work. Yeah. So, it's hard.
I would say Rare doesn't have a ton of experience with online games.
That's true. But usually you'd think that Microsoft would have their back on that,
Well, they should. It's a first-party game. They should have been there.
Like, Microsoft knows how to, maybe they know how to do it. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's like, how long ago was Halo 5? That's about the last time anyone seemed to care about a Microsoft online launch.
Yeah.
To that degree.
Yeah. So you're okay with Nintendo continuing to put out 3DS stuff and support 3DS?
It makes financial sense for them. There's a huge user base there.
Personally.
I don't care. Like, I don't think it's taken anything away from the Switch, and I don't particularly care about the Switch to begin with. So, and I feel like the people who are making these 3DS games that I'm not interested in would also just be making Switch games I'm not interested in. So, no big loss, one or the other, whatever you want to do. I'm still just sitting here waiting for, I don't know.
What are you waiting for at this point?
On the Switch?
Yeah. Metroid,
yeah. We'll see what Smash Brothers is like. We don't really know, I think, if, there's much raging debate over whether it's a port of the last one or whether it's a brand new game. Still hasn't been confirmed.
Yeah. We should get that confirmation at E3, I'm guessing.
I'll tell you this much, and I know this, it's mainly seen as a competitive tournament game now, but I don't care about any of that, and I think it's one of the most boring things to watch people play. Because I just don't care about all the rolling and the
right.
It's like, yes, I understand that people are
making making
100
really
inputs a second
players,
or whatever, but it's like, just because it's hard to do doesn't mean I want to watch it. Curling,
right.
It's very hard to get a hole in one, but I don't want to watch golf on TV either. And it's not an insult to the golfers or the Smash Brothers players. It's not interesting to me. But if you make a big crazy I thought it was a shame that the last Smash Brothers got rid of the Subspace Emissary kind of style single player campaign, which I realized wasn't the greatest game ever made, but it was fun to see everything interacting and all the different characters together. And if you do some kind of Infinity War style Nintendo thing like that with this new one, I'm on board for that. I'm much more interested in that. But we don't know anything. I guess I'm waiting for Smash Brothers, and I think Metroid is probably next year. So, and I'd like to see what Retro's been working on for however many freaking decades at this point.
Meanwhile, we get Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze port.
Well, look, I'm not a Donkey Kong fan, but that game is gorgeous.
Oh, it's a great game. Yeah.
More people should have played it.
I guarantee the Switch version of that game will sell at least 4 times.
I think
sold on Wii
if
U.
it was even halfway decent on the Wii U, just port it to the Switch. Put it on the Switch. I don't care what. If it was only on the Switch, or only on the Wii U, put it on the Switch. Give me Wonderful 101. Not me. I already have it, but put Wonderful 101, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Super Mario 3D World, anything. The Zelda HD remasters, everything. Bring it over. Bring it all over. Bring it all over onto this platform that more people can play on and more people are going to have, and it's clearly going to have a longer life.
I would be happier if they dropped the price a little bit for the Switch version.
Yeah, but they're not going to. Maybe the Zelda games will be $50.
Yeah.
And they were overpriced on the Wii U.
It'll never happen.
No.
It's always going to sell at full price.
Nintendo doesn't do that.
No.
Nintendo doesn't drop the price.
It does not. One thing I will say to transition into our next topic is Nintendo's lack of online has kind of saved Nintendo's fans from something that a lot of people detest, and that is games as a service.
Unless you play Fire Emblem or The Last Zelda or those Warriors games.
Yeah.
Fire Emblem, I think, is a little overboard in terms of the microtransaction phenomena.
Are you talking about
3DS?
The 3DS game.
Yeah.
I
mean, they wanted me to pay like $90 for the full version of Fates.
Yeah.
So, or Birthright and whatever that was. And I was not really down with that. I was like, just give me the game. Okay.
Here's the thing, though, about games as a service is we can complain about it. People can create online petitions against it. People can go on...
Belgium can outlaw it.
People can go on rants or whatever on YouTube about it. But the bottom line is, obviously, the majority of players like games as a service. I think I read the other day that games as a service has like doubled the revenue of the games industry in like 3 or 4 years. So obviously it works. And there's a lot of people out there that are absolutely fine with games as a service. They have your girlfriend, she plays Overwatch constantly and she's fine with it. She does
playing it right now, I think.
Right. So some people are just like, I like getting play, and there is something to be said for getting really good at a game. That is probably the thing I hate about being a games journalist the most, is that I can never play one game long enough to get really good at it. Because there's like this glass ceiling that you break through at some point, where you're not just like this casual person, kind of a drive-by player. That game becomes like a part of your life in a lot of ways, and sometimes it gives you an identity, or it creates a circle of friends for you in the real world. There's all kinds of advantages to getting really into one game. And
Do you have any games like that like you wish you could have gotten that good at?
A lot of shooters, obvious. Yeah, I wish I got really good at Battlefield 1, but instead I played it when it came out for like 2 weeks and then had to move on.
I feel that way about For Honor. I wish I could have like mastered For Honor, but I just didn't have the time. I moved on.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, I know, poor us, but it's it is one of the downsides of being a journalist or being someone on a podcast who has to talk about new topics every week.
Like sometimes I just find games like like For Honor where I'm like, if I didn't have any other responsibilities in terms of what I need to play to talk about, I would probably just settle into this and play it for like 3 months.
Yeah. And
so good job, Ubisoft, because that's what they want us to do.
Yeah,
so.
I think a lot of people feel that way. And so I feel like we've been guilty of really laying into games as a service just as much as every other podcast or video cast out there. So I wanted to take a minute for us to share games as a service that we think are doing it right, but also games as a service that are doing it wrong. And we're going to start with, in our opinion, what we think is the worst game as a service, and then we're going to finish with what we think is the best so that we can end on a positive note.
Okay.
So, Matt, what game do you think is doing games as a service the worst that you've experienced yourself?
The worst is actually a very current topic, and that is the Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery mobile game.
People were pretty excited for this.
Yeah, well, because at the core, it is the dream Harry Potter game. You create your young wizard, and you go to Hogwarts, and you go to classes, and you learn.
You choose your house that you want to be a part of.
Which is stupid, but like you should have to take a quiz, and then like they put you into the thing, and then if you really don't like it, you can pick. Okay,
right.
But they should do
they really do it in the film.
But they don't even try. Like they just like, what do you like? I like Ravenclaw. Okay, you're a Ravenclaw. It's like, oh, that's great. If you look at the video here, it's pretty obvious they built the whole game in The Sims.
Yeah. Same art style.
It's the exact same art style. Some of the animations are the same.
Yeah.
It looks like a mod of The Sims most of the time. It takes place in 1985, I believe.
Great year.
It's
Chicago Bears.
It's a prequel to the movies and the books.
Is there really a plot in the game?
Yeah, it's about you're the younger sibling of a student who was at Hogwarts a few years ago and like went crazy or something, and like then ran away, and just you don't know where he is or something, and everybody like kind of thinks you're weird because your brother was crazy or something like that. I'm not too far into it because it's very hard to progress in it because the microtransactions are just there to stop you at all time. So there's been a lot of stuff written about this. Part of it seems like a lot of the takes I've written on it are kind of like read about it with like strike me as like, yes, this is a bad structure for a game, but at the same time, it feels like the person writing it has never played one of these free-to-play mobile games before. Like people were complaining, like, oh my god, I ran out of energy while the character was being strangled by a vine, and like I had to pay to make them not die or something. It's like, well, no, they're just gonna get strangled like that until you come back to the game. Like they're not real. Like it's not like they're not actually gonna. It's just not actually. It's not actually a real video game. Like that's the thing. Is like you can't die. Like you can just underperform or greatly perform. And like so like basically the way it works is there's no gameplay to it. Like you go to different places and you watch a cutscene when the story mission unfolds, and then something will happen, either a lesson or an action scene, and like there's like, you know, something happens and you will see little pieces on the screen highlighted in blue, and you tap the blue part. And you have to fill the bar up by giving it a certain number of taps, and that's how much energy it takes. And you run out of energy, and the energy refills in over time. It's like 4 minutes for one piece of energy, and like you're looking at like 24 energy to complete a scene. So it's about an hour and a half to regenerate your energy. And so, but there's all these.
This game sounds.
But like
insane.
It doesn't. A lot of these free-to-play games that do stuff like this like are pretty smartly designed in the sense that like. They'll make sure that like your general missions are sort of designed to be completed in one energy bar, or like, oh, you need more to go do this, so just wait. The thing about the Harry Potter game is the lessons and the stuff you have to do to fill up with your energy bar stuff, they're timed. So like you have, not only do you have a certain amount of energy and then you have to wait for the energy to refill, but you have like 3 hours or 4 hours before you fail the lesson. And so I guess the idea is, so far every time I've had like a timed mission, if I set like a timer and was on top of when my energy refilled, I could still do it in the allotted time. But the point seems to be to scare you into thinking you're going to fail the mission by not having enough time to rebuild all your energy, so you just buy more energy.
Right. That's a pretty typical strategy.
But this is much more annoying than because it's story driven and it's kind of like trying to like get you to keep. And then the other thing it does is sometimes you'll complete certain story missions and then the next story mission will not be available for like 3 hours.
Oh, geez.
For no given reason. But if you want to skip it, it's only 55 crystals.
Right.
And it's only 55 crystals for $9.99. And it's like, so they're hitting you with two different kinds of like gating currency.
Right.
And of course, it's a Harry Potter game. It's directly targeted at children. Like it's it has to be, right? I mean,
so
I realize
parents do not let your kid download this game.
I wouldn't,
because they're going to be coming to you every hour and a half saying, "I need more crystals."
Right. Well, because part of the problem is that like it's not fun. It's not fun. Like you don't like when all you've done when you load up a lesson, you got a full energy bar. You've tapped on like 7 different things a few times, and now you're out, and you got to turn it off and go do something else. Like that's the gameplay. There is no gameplay.
Play these games at all?
Because it's like a cookie clicker. It's like those clicker games. You've played those?
I have not. I've heard a lot about them, but I've never
where you're literally just clicking stuff. Except usually that's just how many times can you click to clear the level. I mean, it's stupid, but at least it's not saying, okay, you clicked 24 times, now you got to wait an hour and a half or pay us $5.
Right. Or watch like 50 like pre-roll ads.
Oh, you can't even do that in this.
Oh, you can't?
No, because that would require you to like, I don't know, have more sponsorships with whatever. So it's a very frustrating game in the sense that it's like it's gated in all the ways that like free-to-play games are usually gated, but I've played a fair number of free-to-play games, and usually when to use up a full energy bar, I play like 10-15 minutes. That's about a chunk of gameplay for a full energy bar it recharges over the course of a couple hours.
Yeah.
And with this game, you're done in like 2 minutes.
Oh, geez.
Tops. And like it just feels like
that seems like poor strategy too, because you would at least want to get the person hooked into the game before you ask them for money.
That's why I find it a little insidious, and this is me speculating a little bit, but it feels like you're preying on the young Harry Potter fan to be like, oh, I got to finish the lesson, or I can't disappoint Professor Flitwick,
right.
Or I can't, you got to like get it done to see what happens next. And I would like to see what happens next because the story is actually kind of interesting in some ways. I mean, from a Harry Potter lore point of view.
Well, it's just new, right?
Yeah,
anything
it's just
new
info,
at this point
right?
Is,
And like, if I keep going in in year 2, I get to meet the oldest Weasley brother. That's something,
right? Yeah.
You see him in the trailer, a guy with a red mullet.
Well, you could also imagine a kid like being over the moon over something like that.
I mean, look, most of the people I know are playing this are like 25. Yeah. I mean, they're millennials or
right.
younger. Or maybe they're not millennials anymore. I don't know what the cutoff is, but people who were like 8 when Harry Potter the books were coming out early on, and like this was their childhood. This was this was their Star Wars. This and they're playing now because like, oh my God, I finally get to. No, you don't. Like the ideal Harry Potter game would be this same concept of create a character, go through a Hogwarts RPG. But it would be like a BioWare game or like an action RPG. I mean, look, the first 3 Harry Potter games were actually pretty damn good in terms of capturing that. They were still sort of like pushed out before they were ready, licensed direct and stuff. But like GBA games were amazing. Yeah. They're really good kind of Zelda-ish action RPGs. There's room there for kind of the dream Harry Potter game, the Hogwarts simulator, kind of Red Dead Redemption 2, but with Hogwarts. Yeah. And no one wants to make it because it would cost money. And it wouldn't be your games as a service.
You also wonder, too, if a game like that would really appeal to the Harry Potter audience all that much.
I think it would.
Yeah?
I think, yes.
Oh, I don't know. I wonder if making something more casual actually does make sense for that IP.
I mean, if you make something like GTA, that game sold millions and millions of copies. Yeah. It didn't sell to us.
But I don't think the typical GTA player really cares about Harry Potter.
No, but what I'm saying is like there's enough casual people out there that you can sell that many copies of something. I mean, and it also doesn't necessarily. I mean, Harry Potter is not a guaranteed sell if you have to like invest in a whole bunch of. I mean, it didn't help Wonder Book.
Well, yeah. Well, what years 5 through 7 or whatever did not sell especially well.
No, well, that's because the games became something else. I mean, the last 2 Harry Potter games were basically Gears of War clones, which I don't think anybody who was into Harry Potter was after.
Cover shooters.
Yeah, they were literally cover shooters. So it was just like that's not what anybody plays. Also, like most of the people I know who are interested in playing Harry Potter games are women, and like. They don't want to play a wand shooner. They want to play a game that's character driven for the most part. I'm not saying girls don't like action stuff, but I'm saying like women who are into stuff like that tend to be more interested in the characters and the relationships and the setting and the world. And you're not giving anyone that.
That's why they like Harry Potter. Right. I mean, anyone who really latched onto the films, that's what they're getting out of it.
But if you made like Mass Effect, but with Harry Potter, I think you would have a hit on your hands with that crowd. But like EA didn't want to take the risk. EA still has a license, so they're not going to take that risk. Yeah. Also, I mean, it's just part and parcel of EA just wanting to do the absolute minimum to get by on the licenses they have. Looking at you, Star Wars.
Speaking of EA, though, are you surprised because EA does really well on mobile? Are you surprised that it kind of dropped the ball so hard with this?
It is a little surprising. I wonder what the process was and kind of what the I mean, it feels like they didn't show this to anybody. And someone be like, yeah, I played for 4 minutes and
now I need to pay?
Filled a bunch of bars and nothing happened. And now I learned a spell, but I can't use it for anything because it's only used in duels, and I haven't had a duel. And by the time I get to a duel, I don't have enough thing. And I have to pay money to have a duel. Why am I paying money to? Like there's 3 currencies. There's the energy that refills automatically. There's the pink gems, which are the things you buy usually to refill energy or to buy clothing, and there's gold. And you get gold pretty quickly, but like when you duel, the duel is basically like a paper, rock, scissors thing. It charges you money. Like to get through the story, it's 100 gold. I mean, I have like 3,000 gold from just playing the game, but it's like still, I'm like, why do I have to pay money to get in a fight with the bully that attacked me? Like, doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Like that. Then you have to unlock, you unlock hair and clothing and body parts and stuff to like customize your character. Some of that costs a lot of currency, gold or the gems. I haven't bought anything like that because I just stuck with the normal, the hair I originally got with them. Because you're just playing dress up with all the standard stuff, and that's kind of the thing to work towards, I guess. And then a lot of it's locked behind levels. So if you want a particular hairstyle that you want, like if you want like a more kind of dreadlock hairstyle, like welcome to level 16. Like it's
this game sounds really dirty.
It's really very gay. And then on top of that, you're gonna be paying premium currency for it. Hopefully you've built up enough in that amount of time, or you're gonna pay real money to get. And like it's not that far off like a lot of other free-to-play gating, but it feels really poorly balanced, and it feels very transparent, and it feels very inappropriate for the license. It feels like this license should be a little more forgiving, a little more interested in giving you a good time, because like let's be honest, Harry Potter has made its money.
Oh yeah,
and then some. Like J.K. Rowling doesn't need any more money. I'm sure she wasn't involved in the microtransaction design for this game, but like this is not a property that we need to leverage so hard and milk the last bit of money out of it. I mean, people have spent their money on this thing. They will spend money on this thing. You don't need to like limit my playtime to a minute at a time to convince me to like, oh, maybe it's like, because here's the thing, why do I spend money on like free to play stuff? If I'm having a good time playing it, I feel like they should be rewarded for giving a good game for free.
Yeah.
And at no point would I ever consider that for this game. Like it's all just clicker stuff, and like I'd rather just watch a video of the story scenes.
Yeah.
Like it,
that you paid like $5 to play.
Or just pull up YouTube, and I'm sure someone would do that.
The whole thing captured.
And it's even worse that like nothing quite. It feels like a Sims expansion for Harry Potter. Like it feels like no effort went into.
Don't give EA any ideas.
Oh, I mean, they already
I could totally see like a Harry Potter.
They already did
like,
the making
Sims
magic
game,
stuff however many times. Yeah, for sure. But like, I mean, that would be better than this.
Yeah.
Like an actual Sims game, like Sims Medieval, but with Harry Potter. Like I would play that.
Yeah.
Like, give a whole Hogwarts thing. You run around. I mean, that would be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be way better than this. It'd be way better than like the last 4 Harry Potter games that weren't Lego games.
Sims games aren't free to play though, man. You got to pay for them.
Good. Like if it means it's a game, I'll pay it gladly. Yeah. Like, you know, and I know that, like, you know, you can level that similar criticism at any free-to-play game, but this is the worst I've seen. And I don't even agree with a lot of the hot takes, sort of like, oh my God,
everything free-to-play
everything's
sucks,
terrible, or like the people like screaming about this particular Harry Potter game, saying like, oh my God, it's the worst thing. It is the worst thing.
You did say it's the worst game as a service
but
ever.
It's not the worst thing in the way that's like, oh my, because I'm familiar with this type of game, and it's just doing the things that because like a lot of the editorials I've read have been like, I can't believe they charge you to continue through this story scene. That is just unbelievable. Like, no, that's every free-to-play game. That's how it works. The problem is that you don't get to play anything before they start trying to get you to either wait or pay.
Yeah.
And like, it's just the worst balance of that I've ever seen in the probably 20, 25 games like this I've played. Because I'll give anything a chance if it's free, but this is not even really worth the time it takes to download it.
Okay, my pick for, in my opinion, the worst game as a service ever is probably also the biggest game as a service ever, and that is Candy Crush. And Candy Crush...
Pioneer.
What'd you say?
Pioneer.
The pioneer of the worst game as a service ever. And what puts Candy Crush over the top for me is that it is the only video game in the history of video games that my mother spent money on. When your monetization practices are so nefarious that you can convince my mom to pull out her credit card and put it into an app and pay, that's when you know you've hit rock bottom.
That's a long time to think while you're doing that.
Absolutely. And my mom, I love you, Mom. She may be watching this, but she is very thrifty and cheap. And so when she told me that she took out her credit card and put money into Candy Crush, I was shocked. And I think the other reason that Candy Crush is the worst is because the game can just be rigged to make you pay. Because it's a match 3 puzzle game, the game is always in control of what you see and what you get.
Right.
And so it can always say, well, you know what? If we put this gem here and this gem here, it's going to put the player in a bind to where they're going to want to, and look, they can rig it so you get to the end of a board, and that's when you get, and that's what happened with my mom. She had been playing the same board for like days and days and days. She finally got that board down to where she needed to just clear a couple more, and if she could just buy that one box, it would clear it, and she could move on to the next stage. And I think that's exactly what King does. I think they have all that data from literally tens of millions of people playing this game. They know exactly what it takes to get somebody to do that, to pull that credit card out of their wallet, type it into that app, and spend real money on the game. And so to me, Candy Crush, hands down, the worst ever game as a service. With all due respect to Michael Pachter, who absolutely loves it, and will admit openly that he's a whale, and he has the money to spend on it,
Yeah,
so he doesn't
I mean,
care.
at least it's a game.
That's true.
You know? Like, Harry Potter is not even a game.
But is it when you can rig it so that...
I mean, I have had some fun playing Candy Crush.
Well, I'll put it this way. I have had some fun playing match 3 games in the past, but the games I've had fun playing are the ones that I paid for.
Well, I played Candy Crush. I mean, I didn't play it to the end or whatever it was, but I played it enough until I hit a certain point, probably like 50-some levels in, where I realized, like, I have failed this level way too many times for it to be chance.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
I think you're right. I think they drop bad pieces on you on a regular basis, and then like I've stuck at something for like days. I'm talking about days and days.
It happens
and days.
to everybody.
And then finally, I got through this like amazing series. I'm like, oh, so you gave up.
Yeah.
Like at a certain point, the game gave up trying
They're
to
like,
get you.
okay,
Like, we'll get
he's
you next
not going to
round.
break.
Yeah,
he's
we'll get you
finally.
next time.
Yeah, I wonder what that number is.
Because there's got to be some kind of like researched point where they're like, okay, if we do it one more time, they're going to quit forever.
They know exactly. They know all the data. They know exactly where they can push people until they have to clear. And probably what happened was you moved one thing and everything just went whap, 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 whap,
yeah,
whap,
pretty
whap,
much.
whap, and it just cleared like 5 times and then off you were.
But that was the moment where I realized kind of like, okay, that really feels like something happened there, and I never went back to it.
Yep,
again.
I did the same thing. I got to like the 25th board or whatever. I could see where they were starting to manipulate me, and I was never getting what I needed, and I was like, screw this. They can control all of this.
Yeah, I'm just going to go play Bejeweled again.
Right. And even Bejeweled then got a little dicey after a while. So, for me, it's Candy Crush. I think it's the worst game as a service ever. All due respect to Michael Pact, who absolutely loves it, and his wife. She also plays it. But my mom made me realize what was going on with that game. I watched her pay real money for Candy Crush, and I was like, okay, that's the tipping point for me. So now we get to turn it around. And let's talk about your favorite game as a service ever and why.
Well, I mean, this is maybe a weird choice because it's not something I play a lot, but it's something I've observed enough to kind of think it does it well, and that's Overwatch.
Yeah.
I've played only a little bit, probably a dozen so hours. My girlfriend has played something like 1,000.
Wow.
I think she has something like 700 hours on Mercy alone.
Wow.
She's pretty good at it.
She should be.
And
she better be.
And they all kind of, her friends, like, they collect all the skins that come out, and it's all aesthetic stuff, so, nothing affects how the game plays or whatever. There's not a whole lot of hard sell on getting you to buy the stuff. You get a drop every single level up you get, and you level up pretty often, it seems, at least from what I want. Maybe it's just because she gets a lot of XP all the time.
Yeah, probably.
But, like, and in exchange, they're constantly adding new stuff and new maps, and like if the various events and I just feel like they give you pretty good value for your money, even though it's something you already paid $60. But I feel like the game's pretty much worth the $60 by itself.
Yeah.
And as you continue moving forward, they've had all the I'm not playing because I don't have a support system in place to play that. But I think like some of the PvE stuff looks pretty cool. There's a lot of like co-op stuff they do that's actually kind of story driven, and it like fills in backstory for the the Overwatch team and Blackwatch and all these I kind of mildly keep up on the lore through her, and I feel like Blizzard's just really doing a good job supporting it and making you feel like even if you're spending money on this, the most important thing for a microtransaction to me is like that I feel like it's like almost like a tip.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, oh, you're giving me this really good game, and I'm having a good time, and I played it for a ton of hours, and I feel like you're giving me something that's worth value. So I'm gonna throw this money your way. I'm gonna get some cool outfits to wear, but I feel like it's I'm supporting this thing that I love to play. And that's I feel like that's a pretty good symbiosis.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is I think Blizzard really makes the players of Overwatch feel like they're a part of Blizzard. Mm-hmm. The way Blizzard has kind of dripped out the lore for this game, I think it gets people who play it involved in it, and it kind of builds this community of people who are all like kind of rooting for one thing to happen or rooting for something else to happen. I think Blizzard's done a good job of giving the fans what they expect, but also surprising them at the same time to keep them coming back for more.
Yeah, I think that's true. If I was going to pick something that would be like kind of something I've played, and I haven't gotten tremendously into it because I just don't have that kind of time, but I also feel like maybe runner-up would probably be Warframe. I feel like Warframe has done a lot to basically reinvent their own game.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the game now that it was when it launched at all.
It's not the game that everybody got for free when they got their PS4.
Yeah, it's a very they've stepped up to some things. There was that price error last year where they were on Steam where for a few hours they were accidentally selling I think it was $120 bundle of something for $9.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people bought it.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, our error.
We screwed up.
You let it keep it, have fun, and that's cool. It's the way there's a lot of companies that wouldn't have done that.
No, absolutely not. They would have figured out a way to like zap the code so that they couldn't.
Because the big thing that people were worried about was like it included a whole bunch of platinum, which was that's the currency.
Yep.
And like basically you were getting like $50 worth of platinum for like $9, and that wasn't even including all the suits and all the extra stuff you got.
Right.
But there's like, hey, if it brings you people in to try the game again or try it for the first time, cool.
Yeah.
And then they did the open world expansion shortly after that, and like I feel like they're doing a good job there.
They've worked hard on that game.
Yeah, I just haven't played it enough personally to have gotten far enough to really know whether it's a great game as a whole yet.
Right.
But I certainly what little I've played of it and what little I've dabbled with it feels like, wow, this is pretty substantial for something you don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
So.
All right, my pick for best game as a service, and I am cheating a little bit here. I'm not actually picking one game, but I am picking one publisher, and that publisher is Ubisoft. For whatever reason, Ubisoft to me has really found the sweet spot with games as a service. And what I like about what Ubisoft has done is that, kind of like Warframe, it has evolved the games with time. So just like you were talking about earlier with Overwatch, you have to pay for Ubisoft's games up front. And that is always a sticking point for games as a service. It's like, wait a minute, you're getting $60 from me for this game, and then you're asking me to pluck down $5 here, $2 there, $10 here, $15 there. And to me, if you're just adding cosmetics and gun skins or hats or whatever, that's where I think games as a service are straying off into dangerous territory. But what Ubisoft has done with both Rainbow Six Siege, which I did not particularly like when it launched, and with For Honor, has basically turned those games into something entirely different than they were when they first launched. So you have that initial spend of $60 when they come out, and you get that experience that's there then. To me, just giving more of that same experience and asking more money for it is wrong and rotten. But if you're going to take that base experience and start morphing it into these other forms that maybe somebody didn't like Rainbow Six Siege all that much when it launched, I like it a lot now. And I've played it way more in the last year than I did in the first year it was available. And I feel like For Honor's done the same thing. They're getting ready to start another season for that. There's a big announcement coming for For Honor at E3. I'm guessing there's probably going to be a Battle Royale mode because that game's perfect for a Battle Royale. It would be something completely different. But Ubisoft, to me, gets it. It's not like, hey, and maybe they're guilty of doing this a little bit with Assassin's Creed, but with Rainbow Six Siege and For Honor, I feel like they said, okay, this is what you're getting when you buy it. If you want to spend more money, we're going to give you something different than what you paid for initially, not just more of the same thing. And so I think Ubisoft has done an honorable job, with those two franchises in particular. Rainbow Six Siege came back from the brink. I mean, it launched, it had no buzz, and now it's become one of the biggest games in the industry. And it's getting ready to start a whole other season again.
I'm interested to see, I've heard that like For Honor is going to have a pretty big section in their E3 press conference.
Yeah.
That they have a lot of new things planned for
That's
it.
what I was just saying. That they're ready to make a bunch of big announcements
I'm
for
interested.
it.
I mean, I did not expect that. I'm glad they did. Although, certainly, if you haven't watched that documentary about the making of that game,
Yeah.
oh boy,
Yeah.
that was some drama back
Yeah.
there, and I feel bad for the guy. That guy we like so much who would kind of frontman it.
Yeah.
I can't ever remember his name.
I can't either. Everyone knows who we're talking about.
Yeah,
though.
but the guy who goes to all the Ren fairs.
Yeah.
Like we know, you know.
You know he does.
He's the one who wanted to make this game because he's super into the medieval combat. In fact,
Right.
I think at one point, one of the big scenes where he sort of like says like, oh, I've lost control, this isn't my game anymore.
Yeah.
He's on the way to a sparring match.
Right.
Like that's his life. That's what he. But it's like that
Yeah.
makes it worse because this is, like I said, this is his life. This is the thing he loves, and we want to make a game out of it. And it just kind of, you see it sort of drift out of his hands.
But I would say
they ended up with a winner on their hands.
They did. They absolutely
one way or the
did.
other.
He built the foundation for the game, and he did a great job with it. And like you said, he was really into sword combat. He made sure they got that right. That's the foundation of the game that can then be used to extrapolate across all the other stuff that they're doing with it. And if you don't have that core, that strong core, all the other stuff is never going to matter. No one's going to care.
Yep.
So
just like in sword fighting.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But so it's worked out. Like him being involved in the game was the key to the game having a strong launch.
I wonder if they'll add a new faction.
Probably.
That'd be cool. I don't know who that would be. Like some kind of like African warriors,
Could be.
that would be cool.
Just watch Westworld. It'll tell you what they're going to add to it. But that's my pick. Ubisoft in general, I think, has done a great job with it. But I also want to commend Sony for not playing that game at all and just saying, you know what, we're not going to do that at all. We're just going to make great single-player games that you guys want to play for 30, 40 hours. So I don't want it to make it seem like, I feel like this is what the modern game is about, or the future of games is about, I realize that this is a monetization strategy that's working for the publishers, and I just wanted to recognize a publisher that I felt like had to do what it's doing, but is finding a good way to do it, I guess.
Jason Vandenberg.
That's his
him.
name. Yeah.
Yes.
Still like him. And he's not at Ubisoft
It sounds like
anymore,
it sounds like a guy who'd be like trying to kill Lara Croft.
Yeah, you're right. And he's not there anymore, right?
No, he went to ArenaNet.
Ah.
He went to the Guild Wars guys.
That's a pretty good marriage.
Yeah.
That
We'll
could
see.
bear some fruit ultimately.
Yeah, hopefully he has something cool to show soon.
Yeah, but that doc is really cool. You can find it on Sifted. Just search for For Honor. And I think I just checked today. It's like one of the top 2 results on the For Honor page. Definitely worth watching after GameFace is over. So let's move on. We're going to talk next about Nintendo Mobile. So as we mentioned on last week's, well, it wasn't last week. It was about 8 days ago now. We talked about Nintendo, how it had basically replaced its interim leader and brought in a new leader. So now we're starting to see kind of some of the edicts and the strategies from the new leader. I want to make sure I get his name right. Furukawa is Furukawa is the new
yeah.
is the new leader. So he went on record this week saying that Nintendo is not maximizing its revenue potential on mobile. And along with that, a lot of sales figures have come out about Nintendo's mobile games. Oddly enough, Animal Crossing has basically tanked on mobile.
That really surprises me.
It has.
I knew a lot of people playing it. I felt like it kind of penetrated the zeitgeist a little more than Fire Emblem did.
People played it, they're not spending money.
Yeah, okay.
That's the problem.
I mean, part of the problem with Nintendo's mobile games, I think, not a problem to me, but a problem for Nintendo maybe, is that they're a little too generous.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't spent a dime on Fire Emblem Heroes, and like that game just gives you stuff.
Fire
constantly.
Emblem Heroes actually is Nintendo's biggest success story.
I can see that. There's a
It's financially.
There's a one more loot box element to that, and it's also Nintendo is so good at hiding that kind of like manipulation that you'll see like on Twitter and so you'll see people that like oh my god, Nintendo's going to put loot boxes into their games. It's like Fire Emblem Heroes already
has
is.
them, yeah.
Like it's gotchapon stuff. It's like that's what that is. It's literally what that is, and like people didn't realize, people didn't know, and it's like that's what that is. But the thing is that like you build up so many crystals, you can have different colors or whatever. You can usually don't have to spend money as long as you kind of don't go nuts over each weekly event. And they let you play a long time. I've gone. Fire Emblem Heroes is one of the few free-to-play mobile games I've ever played where I have stopped playing it before my energy ran out because I'm just like, man, I've been playing this for like an hour. I gotta stop.
Yeah.
So I think.
So the question is, how do they fix it? What does Nintendo need to do with this mobile product?
Well, you look real close at this Harry Potter thing, and you find the happy medium between letting me play Fire Emblem for an hour and a half unmolested and playing Harry Potter for like 2 minutes before I start getting, before like Peter Moore's successor starts poking me in the side asking for money. Like you got to get kind of halfway between there. I mean, I feel like Nintendo's games, mobile games are fun. They just don't offer enough incentive to spend money for your average mobile consumer. I mean, I played a lot of Mario Run.
So are you saying that Nintendo needs to be more jerks?
Nintendo needs to be, yeah, basically. Nintendo needs to stop giving you so much shit. I mean, I played...
So the free-to-start thing, you think is the problem?
Maybe. I mean, I played Super Mario Run for, a lot of the time when I was recovering from surgery, and like, I never had to spend I was maxed out on tickets all the time. I gave me more tickets than I could hold sometimes. I wasted tickets because I was getting more than I maxed out on, and I know I already paid $10 for that game, but like, presumably you're supposed to have to kind of limit the playtime. I mean, I assume like the tickets are there because like you have to spend a ticket to do anything. So I assume that's supposed to be kind of your limiting factor, and like, oh, if you run out of tickets, you got to give us some money, and that's kind of what. But like,
I did not buy Super Mario Run. I did the free to start thing and never spent any money on it. And I would say that I don't know. I felt like I got cut off before I felt like I got much out of the game.
Somewhat. I mean, they've added a lot since then. The remix.
And I have not touched it since the first couple of months.
The remix stages are really good. Like the remix thing is the remix 10, I think it's called, and like basically it's this seems to be endless. I'm on like level 40 or something of it, and I rescued Princess Daisy on level 30s, and it's just kept going. So, but what it is you spend a ticket to do 10 micro levels. It's almost like a WarioWare thing, where like each level is like this tiny bite-sized chunk of a level in the game, maybe takes 10 to 15 seconds to get through, and there's like magic medals that you collect, and there's usually three, sometimes 5 per level. And as you collect them, they build up, and every certain amount of them you get to make a spin on this thing that gives you rare furniture for your kingdom or whatever. And I've played that a lot. Like, that is real. I mean, just like run through 10 of those, it takes like a minute and a half, and it's just like boing, 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 boing. It's real. It's like just instant gratification at its most insidious. And I could totally have seen myself spending money on it if like I'd run out of tickets and I'm just like, oh, I just want one more. But I've never been, you can maximum hold 99 tickets. I don't think I've ever had less than 80. Like, they just throw tickets at you constantly. And I'm like, that's the thing, is Nintendo needs to get a little more ruthless.
I mean, that's how you make money on mobile gaming. I mean, I hate to say it, but
it's totally antithetical to Nintendo's philosophy of game making. That's the problem.
Well, here's the weird thing about it is, like, a lot of people don't want to pay $10 for a mobile game. Mm-hmm. They'll see that. They'll say, oh, you want $10 for this? All mobile games should be free. But that same person will then spend $30 or $40 on that game on microtransactions. And it feels like Nintendo maybe is a little too polite, or it just doesn't get the way mobile games work.
Well, part of the problem is, like, I mean, it's not a problem, but it's like Nintendo's trying to make fun games. Almost no one in the mobile space is doing that.
No, you're right.
Like, they're not trying to
make
make
fun.
No
one puts fun first.
They're not trying to make fun games. They're trying to make Skinner boxes that manipulate you into spending money.
Absolutely.
And that's not Nintendo's philosophy, so they're not doing that, and that's why they're not succeeding as well. And, like, it could potentially be taken as a compliment to them that they're not succeeding as well, because they're providing us a game. They're providing games that, people like to play and don't need to spend money on. Maybe Animal Crossing didn't fit that bill, because I guess a lot of people stopped playing it. It seems like the report says, like, not just like people aren't spending money on it, but they're not playing it anymore.
Yeah. Well, it is Animal Crossing.
I mean, yeah, Animal Crossing didn't hold my attention too long.
I think the other problem too with Animal Crossing.
Once I build the T-Rex skeleton, I'm basically done.
I mean, it's a slow-moving game.
Yeah.
And like with a lot of mobile games, you need to be able to sit down and in 5 minutes accomplish something. Mm-hmm. That's not really how Animal Crossing works. It's like, it's one of those games like, I know I need to go over here and get this fishing rod, and I need to find this particular space on the shoreline that's going to get me this fish that I really need. And that's not how mobile gaming really works. Another thing I would say about Nintendo and mobile is, to me, Nintendo made a huge mistake by letting DNA and Niantic make all the money off of Pokemon Go. I mean, Nintendo gets a sliver of the money that's being generated by that game. And in all honesty, that is the biggest mobile hit based upon a Nintendo IP. And I think if Nintendo had to do it all over again, it would try to work the deal some way.
Did they have a choice in that, though?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't have any idea. But regardless, if it didn't, it should have fought tooth and nail to generate more revenue off of Pokemon Go.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you want to mess with your relationship with
Game Freak.
Game Freak.
I don't think Game Freak. Well, Game Freak obviously is getting a big cut of the royalties as well. But it's the studio.
The Pokemon company, rather.
Yeah. It's the studio that made the game that's really reaping most of the rewards from that, and that's. Well, they're also the
typical. They're also the ones that got sued almost.
No, you're right. Yeah.
One way. I mean, I wouldn't have put a ton of my eggs in the Niantic basket, if I'm being honest. Because what the game they made before, which is basically what they reskinned for Pokemon Go, also didn't work too well.
Yeah.
So.
But to me, I think you're right. I think Nintendo's going through some growing pains right now, transitioning from the way it's always made games, and for the platforms it's always made games for, to this new frontier of monetization that it really doesn't have a clue on how it works right now. But Nintendo is smart. You would have thought somewhere along the way it would have brought in consultants from companies that have done very well.
Well, they
bring in some people from Tencent.
Well, they may have, but I can see Nintendo's reaction to a lot of the psychological warfare that goes on.
No way.
Be like, no, we're not going to be that company.
That to our customers.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that wins you customer loyalty, but it also doesn't fill the coffers.
That also may be where you're seeing the Iwata aesthetic versus the aesthetic of the newer leaders. Where Iwata is sort of a player-first guy who's always thinking about the customer, and you have some of these maybe shrewder, more bottom-line driven guys coming in to take his place, and they're not so concerned about the customers as they are making sure that the bottom line comes in where it needs to.
Yeah, that could be. It's you could end up with a more Yamauchi-style leader.
Yeah, so I hate to say it, but maybe it is just a case that Nintendo needs to be a dick with its mobile games. It needs to be a little more shrewd.
Yeah, I don't think that's wrong. I mean, do I think they'd have to be successful? Probably not.
Well, here's the other thing.
But that's the thing is like
a lot of companies would kill to generate the amount of revenue on their mobile games that Nintendo is generating.
Right, but
Nintendo just sees the 10 cents and companies like that and King making so much money, and they're like, wait a minute, we have better IP. We should be making more money than those companies.
Well,
and it's wondering
also
why.
They have better games,
right.
But like that's just not how it works.
No,
like,
it's really not.
It's also like I don't know if they're aware that like it's just a totally different audience. Like the people who play mobile games don't play video games in a large chunk of those people. That the audience doesn't care about that. They play these and I mean, and it happens all the time. I have 2 people on my Steam friends list who every time their name pops up on the whatever I was playing, whatever, it's always one of those weird cookie clicker style things or like an idle game, like where you advance in the game by just turning it on and leaving it. Like, it's all they play. And I'm like, well, I don't like. How do you even talk to somebody about video games at that point? It's weird, and it's just a different way of doing it. You know, like, and it's like not something I can identify with, and I feel like Nintendo's philosophy as a company is going to make it very hard for them to get into that headspace. And maybe you don't even want them to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
I don't really care if it makes any money on mobile.
right, because then you start wondering, it's like, okay, well, it works here. What about this Switch game? Or what about the next Zelda? Maybe we could stick something like that. And that's the EA thing, where like everything.
It's the slippery slope.
It's where you end up with Nintendo's version of Battlefront 2, basically, and nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Or worse, Need for Speed Payback.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't care if Nintendo never made another dollar on mobile. I mean, it's not like I've played...
I ain't a shareholder. And I
don't care. It's not like I've played any of Nintendo's mobile games and I enjoyed them more than 3DS games or Switch games.
No.
I actually enjoy the 3DS and Switch games way more. So it's really no skin off my back if they never make another mobile game again.
Like, I think they're like Mario Run. I haven't played Animal Crossing, but I think Mario Run and Fire Emblem Heroes were nice, bite-sized adaptations to some degree. I mean, $10. Okay.
Still, it felt like an adaptation.
Felt like an adaptation. Oh yeah, like like the 4-on-4 missions in Fire Emblem are very short, very fast. But like that's what they need to be in that format.
Do. Absolutely.
I think Fire Emblem Heroes kind of nailed what it should be better than just about anyway. It's like, and like not everything is going to be translatable. There's like, how do you make a Metroid game in that format? Like you don't basically.
Unless it's just like her in her ball form the whole time, and it
like
turns
Metroid
into
pinball kind of thing,
something like that. Yeah,
but we already did that.
We did, yeah. It was not a pretty day for that IP when.
No.
Yeah, so maybe Nintendo just needs to just take what it can get with mobile instead of, because here's the thing: Nintendo does not want to anger its customers and have its customers turn on it and say, "Oh, Nintendo's changing; it's starting to become a little greedy, or it's not caring about its customers as much anymore." Because the worst thing that could happen is pissing your fans off on mobile so much that they turn away from you and won't buy stuff on handheld and console. That's when you get in deep crap.
I don't really see that happening.
Nope. No, in the fervor of Nintendo fans, I definitely don't see that happening.
I mean, you're in, Reggie could shoot someone's dog, and there would be people excusing it somehow. You know what I mean? It's like, well, that dog said a really mean thing about
Reggie.
It insulted their DLC plan, and
can't have that.
Suggested that something didn't sell as well as it should have.
Reggie was justified. Yeah.
So, so there's that element. I don't think you're ever going to lose that audience.
Yeah.
I think the danger becomes if they do adapt their strategy to mobile, and that new leadership starts to say, hey, this does real well. Why don't we start applying some of this to our other 2 pillars?
Yeah.
And
that's the danger. Yeah.
That's when you have an EA situation on your hands. And it'd be nice to never have. I would like to not have a Battlefront 2 scenario happen with Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Agreed.
So, and God knows what that would be, but it seems easier.
Oh, they could figure it out.
They'll find something, yeah.
Absolutely.
Or Splatoon 3 becomes like this crazy microtransaction
That really
fest.
could be the franchise where that could happen.
Because I bet that would work. I bet you would make money doing that. Like if you charge for all that stuff instead of putting it out for free.
Yep.
Some people would abandon it, but enough people would buy it because
that would make up for the lost revenue.
I mean, look,
people who bailed.
What are Amiibo?
Yeah.
When it comes down to it.
Yeah, that's really all they are.
You're
$10 for something that you could just give.
$15.
Right. For something that you could just have it like a code, and that's all you need. You don't really need those toys at all.
$10 and like, it's such a nice. Come on.
Yeah.
It's a $4 statue, and you paid an extra $10 for the outfit that it gave you, or whatever. It's already here
Yeah.
to some degree.
But because you're getting that little piece of physical whatever, people seem to forgive it. Because they can put that there and have their little collection.
You can clutter my house up more, I'll forgive you for charging me for DLC, apparently. That's your...
Go.
Worked for Skylanders for about 4 years.
It did. But eventually that well run dry.
Yeah, well, where are the amiibos now?
Yeah.
They're gone. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing. We're waiting for the Sun Bro
Which
with
is
the Dark Souls
delayed,
remaster, and
yeah.
that's basically it if you already pre-ordered it, because it's gone.
Well, even a company like Nintendo that just has tons and tons of IP is eventually going to run out of characters.
True.
You only put on so many outfits. How many Links are there, Link Amiibo?
I think I have at
4?
least 5.
5? Yeah.
5 or 6.
So, well, you could probably put out another 10 Link.
You put a bunch
Amiibo.
out. You can put out, yeah. Hell, you could put out a different Mario for every Mario game.
Yeah.
And then you repaint it to Luigi, just extend the head a little bit.
That's when it starts to get dirty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're not afraid of that.
Yep. All right, let's move on for our last topic of this week's episode. I told you it's going to be a short episode. We're going to talk about State of Decay 2. This game, I think I'm getting tomorrow. I'm getting a review code for it. It comes out on the 20th.
22nd or something like that?
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I think-
It comes out soon.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
In about
few
a week
weeks.
and a half, yeah. And I should be getting it soon, but man, tons of gameplay and previews and stuff have rolled out. At this point, you pretty much have a good idea of what is up with the game. Matt, were you a fan of the first State of Decay?
Oh yeah.
I was not. I literally, this is one of those games that I played for like 2 hours and never went back. I experienced 3 or 4 crazy bugs in that 2 hours, and I could just see where it was all headed. I'm like, I don't want to get neck deep into one of these games where I spent all this time building up my character and doing all this crazy stuff, dedicating a lot of my time to it, just for some random bug to like wipe it out. There's a certain level of trust I have with games, and if I start to think that the game might be buggy, I don't want to dedicate a ton of time to it. I've actually done it with Elder Scrolls games in the past. When I first got Skyrim, I played it for like 8 hours, I think, and then got a really bad bug where I lost some of my progress, and I stopped playing. And I was like, I'll wait for them to patch this up because I don't want to get stuck in some situation where I put 40 hours into a game and then my save gets corrupted or something along those lines. And so I'm very protective whenever I go to play games like this. And the first State of Decay, to me, was like that really, really janky. Lots of weird stuff happen. It can be fun and entertaining at times, but it didn't engender a lot of trust. Now, here we are 5 years after the first State of Decay. I'm assuming this game was in development as soon as the first one was released, meaning it's been in development for 5 years. Yet, looking at some of the footage that has been released over the last week or so, there's already bugs being exposed by the capture that people got at a preview event for this game.
Yeah, the jank is apparently considered a character in
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
as far as I can tell.
It's a feature.
I mean, I played the first one and the year 1 edition or whatever that was. Like, I played those pretty extensively, probably about 20 hours each. I really like them in spite of how weird they are and buggy in places. I just like it's kind of the zombie game that like my friends and I used to talk about all the time back in the old PlayStation 1 games, like the idea of an open world where like you have to collect supplies and build up your base and most of the people that I used to talk about this with, I don't speak to anymore. But if this had come out like 10 years ago, we would have played this for months, months and months. And,
Left 4 Dead was kind of that game, wasn't it?
Because it has co-op now. Well, no, Left 4 Dead was not that. I mean, we did play Left 4 Dead a lot, but Left 4 Dead is not that. Left 4 Dead is a run and gun shooter. This is like
The circle strafer.
this is a put the food in the bin and hammer the boards up and board up the window and let's go over there and stop making so much noise, they'll hear you, and like it's that kind of tension that is interesting about this game. And looking at the preview stuff, like I've only seen one new zombie type.
Yeah.
The plague zombie or the plague something. That's like your main new thing is like there's these plague zombies, and when they hit you, you have this little like meter that fills up, and if it fills up, your character becomes one of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is one of the things that's interesting about these games, the State of Decay games, is like you have a whole bunch of characters, and you can switch between them at will. And if one of them dies, that's it.
Yeah.
Like you lose that character, and so you got to be careful. You got to let some of them go back and rest up at the base. You got to decide who to use for what. You got to kind of make your choices and make sure you're not overusing somebody because they'll lose their stamina and be more vulnerable out in the field. And that kind of sort of sim balance stuff is very interesting. I really like that in the original game. So this looks like basically, it almost looks like an expansion pack.
Well, you mentioned co-op. Co-op is the big new feature.
Yeah, 4-player co-op is sort of the biggest
However,
new thing.
The co-op is, the way it works is you are attached to each other via invisible cords. If you go too far away from the group, you start getting warning signs saying you've gone too far away, you need to get back, or it will just teleport you back to the group. So it's not like you can come into an open area and you can all split up and go scavenge and try to find supplies and then meet back up. You have to stay in the general vicinity of everybody else who's playing cooperatively with you. That, to me, is a huge detriment.
That doesn't bother me at all in any way.
But you were talking earlier about how you and your friends would want to be able to go into an area and kind of scavenge it.
Yeah, but I'm sure you can. People talk about how short are these tethers? I'm not unused to playing multiplayer games where you have to stick close to each other in some kind of vicinity idea.
I am. It seems like it's been forever since I played a game that's like that.
Most games don't have the ability to wander around like that. The only game that I can really think of where you could wander around and leave each other completely is basically GTA 5, where we spent that same group of people. We spent hours never seeing each other in that game because we wandered away and did whatever we wanted. I spent a lot of time stealing jet fighters and then finding where the other guys were and strafing them. We were basically being jerks to each other the whole time, but we would go very far afield to find a new way to be a jerk to one another. This would be, I can see this is more of a thing where it's probably a technological limitation, but sticking together in this sort of scenario is not unrealistic. It depends how limiting it is. If you can't go more than 20 feet away from somebody, that's annoying. But in general, that doesn't really bother me. Halo does the same thing. So. That's not a crazy limitation to me. I probably won't play this much co-op anyway, so I guess I'm not really the person to ask about it.
Do you feel like after 5 years, this is good enough, though?
I have no idea what any of these Microsoft exclusives are. I have the same questions about Crackdown 3.
Oh, yeah.
What's taking so long?
I'm starting to wonder if that game's ever even going to be released.
This does look better than the previous game.
Graphically?
Yeah, graphically it looks better.
Well, it should.
But you see things again, if you watch the IGN video, they did one that was called 9 awesome things that happened while we were playing State of Decay 2. And the first thing is they're driving a pickup truck and there's another pickup truck coming down the road and they try to squish this zombie between them and the zombie actually dodges out of the way before they can hit it and they ram into the other pickup truck. And the explosion when the pickup trucks hit each other is the weirdest, most physics error. One of the other pickup truck shoots up into the sky off camera, and it looks like a glitch. The whole thing looks like an error.
It sounds
weird.
like the last game. That's the type of stuff that was happening to me in the last game.
I just didn't.
There was times where I was fighting, and my character would just slowly start sinking below the floor, just all kinds of random stuff like that. And you're right. This game, at least the first one, is brutal. You take a couple swipes from a zombie, you were dead.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't look like that's the case in this one. It looks like you're a little more hardy in this one. At least from
that
the
would be a good
change
to me.
But I didn't have that many problems with bugs in the first one. It was just sort of a clunky game to me. I never had
definitely. The controls were very, very clunky.
Yeah, I never had anything where I felt like the game's bugged out and ruined something or damaged my progress or anything like that. And I played through a fair amount of it in a preview code version, and then I played the final retail, and then I played probably played about 20 hours of each of 3 versions of it, and I never found it to be unplayably buggy. It's a little weird because I guess in my head I sort of pictured a sequel to this as being the same idea expanded further, but with a lot more polish on it.
Right.
And it looks more like the same idea slightly expanded with no extra polish on it.
I agree.
And we saw that at the E3 demo last year too, where you had that woman that got in the pickup truck and just had this completely blank stare.
It turned into a meme.
Into nowhere, and it was that was the thing where oh really? You should,
and that had been in 4 years in development at that point.
Yeah, and I actually even commented on the trailer. They did the trailer of everybody talking about the things they're good at.
Yeah.
I commented on Sifted on where it pans across the roof where they're getting ready for the zombie attack, and it shows everybody holding their guns, and one guy it pans over right in the middle of the shot. He's the focus of the shot. His left arm is coming out of his chest to hold his gun. It's coming out of his chest in his jacket and holding his gun like that.
Right.
And I'm like, is that how's that go in the trailer? Like, how do you not like recapture that? Like
If you're a studio making an E3 trailer,
I wouldn't let that into our preview footage.
Frame by frame.
Yeah.
I mean, you're making sure there's nothing.
Like, I wouldn't
there.
let that shot in preview footage of like something we were doing on an editorially driven show.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if I'm actually the one who's publishing that game, how do you let that shot in there?
Like, if I were working with
Crazy.
like IGN on an IGN first for a month, like
I would be like, let's not use that.
Yeah, I would not let that into the.
But it's
the
in their official trailer. It's crazy. I'm like, I guess it could have been something where like you watch some of this footage so much when you're cutting stuff, you just don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
But like the first thing I saw, I was like, what? Okay, and I mean, I know I'm a video editor, producer person, so I'm like, that's what I'm looking at. Like, what? And I look back, I'm like, what? And like, it's like, yep. And people in the comments like, yep, clipping error. I'm like, yeah, but there should be no clipping errors like that in your marketing material.
Like, if you let somebody go capture raw gameplay and you don't look at it before they publish it, sure, that's going to happen. But if it's something that you sat and worked on for
this
like
is your
probably 2 weeks
choreographed
straight.
trailer, which is clearly using like debug tools to pan across these characters, because clearly you can't do that in the normal game.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Now look, you say it looks better. It does. It doesn't look as good as it should, in my opinion.
Well, especially considering how rare an Xbox Microsoft exclusive sort of thing is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't expect this to be GTA 5 with zombies or anything.
Right.
But like, it doesn't look like a 2018 game.
No. It
that,
looks
that
like,
should be costing full price.
It looks like, to me, an Xbox 360 game that's being played backwards compatible on like Xbox One X.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see. Yeah.
It's low poly. The textures are not as high resolution as they should be for a game from 2018. One thing I would say about this game, this franchise in general, I don't think a lot of people play it for the graphics. I think a lot of people play it for the survival elements.
It's going to be a lot of fun anyway, I think, for me. I'm not worried about that. But like, if I was trying to sell someone who didn't play the others, who didn't like the others on it, I feel like I would have an uphill battle.
You'd have a tough sell, absolutely. And I think that's a problem too. I feel like this franchise needs more fans. It was kind of a cult hit, the first one.
Yeah, and like, it's just like, it's like little things. It's hard to explain. Like you see the container here. She's going, I love this. I love this like weird little like circle thing. Where it's like, what's gonna be in the container?
Right.
And then, like, if you hold the left bumper, you search faster and you make more noise. You make more noise. Zombie show. I love the tension of that. That is all really cool. And like expanding that idea and like establishing outposts and setting like a garden up so like you can have some food and like then you have to get back and defend. I mean, like expanding that whole thing, that whole like base building and sort of maintenance thing, like what they're talking about in Red Dead Redemption 2 even. Expanding that is a really cool idea. But like, you can't just do that. Like, I'm struggling when I watch this and read this preview coverage to understand like what took 5 years.
Yeah, I'm completely flummoxed as to what took so long to make.
It's not going to change my mind about buying it or playing it, but it does make me confused and sad a little bit.
I'm going to give it a go. Like I said, I'm going to have it here in a couple days, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they actually have made drastic changes that as you play it more, you start to uncover. And
I've already pre-ordered it. I'm on board. Like,
we'll be playing together.
Maybe it's
not too far apart. Man.
Maybe it's a mistake, but I decided to go for it, and I don't always do that before something comes out. Sometimes I wait and see if I can finagle a copy from somebody I know or something like that.
I found the first game to be very frustrating, and so I'm hoping that at the very least, they've kind of dialed that back a little bit. And I felt it was frustrating right from the beginning. I didn't feel like there was any sort of a curve where you had like a grace period to kind of learn the controls and learn the ins and outs of the game before it became brutal.
Yeah, the one thing I hope they get on this is, like, I really enjoyed kind of building the stuff and kind of getting the characters leveled up and sort of finding stuff and bringing it back and kind of the interaction of everybody. My main issue was like it was very focused on like, you can't relax. You can never have a moment where everything's okay. Something's always going. And I kind of hope that they learn in this. I think one of the most important things is you can't make it easy. But I think in a game like this, in a scenario like this, one of the things you have to make sure you can do is you have to give the player moments where they're like, man, everything's awesome right now. Like, I got everything together. I've got everything the way I want it. Like, my base is doing well. Everything. And then you ruin everything.
Right.
But like, you got to give me
peaks and valleys.
some high points to match up with the valleys. And I just felt like the first game was was unless you really were on top of the min-maxing of how everything ran out versus how fast you could acquire it, it felt a little more punishing than it probably should have been.
Yep.
And you get used to it and you get there, but I think if you want this to be a bigger hit and more break into the mainstream a little bit more, you got to give people. I like that zombie just yes, hello, like someone here.
That's the way this game is, though. The zombies just come out of nowhere. I felt like I didn't have a chance a lot of times.
Like if that zombie didn't have glowing yellow eyes, we just thought it was whoever lives here.
Right. You'd been like, oh, okay, this is like my co-op partner or whatever. Yeah. So we'll have a lot more on this game in the coming weeks. Again, I'll be getting it here in the next day or two. So definitely next week we'll be talking about it a little bit more. It is really kind of Xbox's big game for
although they were
until like the end of the year.
And depending on when Crackdown 3 happens, I mean,
if it ever does,
if they decide to
I'm really starting to wonder
if they hang the whole fall on Crackdown 3. I mean, oof. But the other thing I'm a little concerned about is some of the preview stuff. Mainly Eurogamer, I think, said that they played the PC and the Xbox One X versions, and the Xbox One X version was a little framey.
Really?
Yeah. Which when it looks
that
like
actually does not surprise me, though.
I mean, I guess not, but like.
I mean, the performance of the first game, it dipped. I know it dipped below 30 constantly.
Oh yeah.
Its frame rate was not
good.
good.
But it's like on the X.
Well, also look at that
just
engine.
the raw power.
They need a new engine, or they need to use a
I don't know what they're
middleware.
using.
I don't either. But I'm guessing they're not using like Unreal or something like that. Or
well, there's hair, so they
right. Touche. All right, it's time for our trailer of the week. I think we did a trailer of the week for this game just like a month ago, maybe. But obviously, the best trailer of the week was Red Dead Redemption 2.
But you can't not talk about that.
Since we talked about it, we're not going to run it. So we have chosen the trailer this week for Vampire. This is really the first time they showed off like actual gameplay for Vampire. This is Don't Nod's action RPG, the studio that was behind Life is Strange. A complete departure, although back in the day they made
some
more action-y games. But this is the first chance where you really get a look at how the combat and stuff works. This is Vampire Becoming the Monster.
You seek to protect and heal the flickering mortals. How vainly noble of you, my child. Fear, hate, those are the only flowers your compassion may grow.
You get them weapons ready! Find one!
Leave me alone! Who are you? Stay back!
Right! Burn it, boys! Over there!
Shit! Where'd it go?
Untie your bonds, my child. Unlearn your past. Embrace your new nature. And once more be reborn. The vigor in their blood is all you need.
We will crush this beast! Crush the leech, boys! Shit! Lost it!
Submit to your hunger or resist it. But remember, mortals are now your prey. And you, my child, their mortal enemy. It is the curse of the goddess. It is the hunger in you. The need for blood. The will to strike and to punish. To spit in the eye of God.
All right, so while we were doing the show, news is broken about Nintendo's online service. Ironically, we were just talking about it.
Thanks to Vincent in the chat.
Yep, thanks, Vincent. So $20 a year, which we knew already.
They're also 1 month and 3 month plans.
Okay.
For I think, so was it $7.99 for the 3 months? And $3.99 for 1 month at a time. And then there's a family membership for 12 months, $35 a year. Which I guess would be
everybody,
everyone in your household or something.
But
multiple accounts.
I
probably,
guess.
like on one Switch or something.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if it's their like goal if Nintendo's goal is to have it be one Switch per person, that makes sense. That they want a whole household to be able to have their online play kind of under one umbrella.
Yeah. No big surprises there.
No.
Wait, there's something with NES games, though, right?
Save data cloud backup, about frickin' time.
So wait, you're going to have to pay for that?
It looks like it. That's part of the feature.
Wow.
Data details about this feature.
Really? You have to pay for your data backup?
I mean, that's how PlayStation works.
Really? You have to have PlayStation Plus before you can back up your saves?
Yeah, I think so.
I've always had it, so I wouldn't know if I could do it without it.
So I think so. It's either that or it's the only.
You get more space, though, don't you?
I think it's only if you pay for Plus.
Really?
I'm pretty
I never
sure.
knew that.
I'm pretty sure it's either that or you can only do automatic uploads if you have Plus. I'm pretty sure it's like you have to have Plus to have cloud saves.
Wow. I did not know that, but I've always had Plus. So.
And then the Nintendo Entertainment System is like 20 games with new games added regularly, and they have online play when appropriate. It looks like launch titles include Soccer, Donkey Kong, Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, Ice Climber, Legend of Zelda, Tennis, Mario Brothers, Balloon Fight, Dr. Mario, and Super Mario Brothers 3, and more to be revealed. I feel like
So wait, that's a virtual console for NES.
Basically, but they're calling it NES, Nintendo Switch Online. Online play added to every classic game. You can compete or cooperate online with friends, share your screen, pass the controller depending on the game.
Do we care about that?
I feel like I've had enough NES retro.
I feel like I played those games too many times already.
I also have them on like 3 other systems, so like that's the Switch experience.
But look, there are always kids who are being born, and they're gonna love it, but not for us.
I mean, at least it's just part of the service. It's something.
Yeah.
Something to get. I'd be more interested if it was Super Nintendo stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a little more of a Super Nintendo fan.
All right, let's field some questions from the chat. We do not have a PC here, so I'm not getting chat to load on my phone, so Matt's going to field some questions for us.
How about Not Cirque or Note Cirque? Yeah, Not Cirque. What would it take to get you interested in Halo again?
You'd have to go back to the way Halo was, so it's different, and it's not just like every other shooter anymore. That, to me, is the biggest issue, is that it's really lost its identity over the last couple entries. I think 343's done a pretty good job with it. And I get why it's kind of chasing the dragon a little bit, trying to keep up with as shooters as they evolve. But I think what it's really done is, instead of people saying, well, I like Halo, it's not really like, people can't just say, well, I like Halo and now I want to buy a Halo game anymore. People are comparing Halo to other shooters, which people never really did. It's like either you liked Halo or you didn't, and a lot of people did. And now it's just kind of turned into any shooter. And I think when you start doing that, then you start getting compared to Battlefield, and you start getting compared to Call of Duty. And I think that's where it loses a little bit of its luster. I think it needs to go back, refine its old identity, and stick to it.
For me, as someone who's more of a single-player guy, drop the Prometheans, focus on Master Chief again, and make it back into a space opera.
Yeah.
Like, I think they've lost the scope, and they've lost the enemies that were interesting, and the kind of the wonder of the universe it takes place in. I mean, instead of like you're just stuck in these ruins fighting these bullet sponges for hours on end. I think take it back to the spectacle that they used to have. It's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
Where was this? Dark Force 256 says, if Bethesda doesn't have Elder Scrolls 6 this fall, what could possibly help them get out of the sales slump? Well, the other expectation is Starfield.
Right. They have that game that they've already announced.
Yeah, that other game that like has been kind of floating nebulously around them for a long time. No one knows what it is.
Typically, when that happens with Bethesda, though, it does not end well.
True.
Bethesda's kind of been the king of, hey, we announce it now, you're playing it in 6 to 9 months. If you remember, Battlecry was another IP that Bethesda showed way early. That ended up being canceled. The studio was like absorbed into the other studios. Usually, if Bethesda announces something and you don't see it for a while, it's not good news. I'm not saying that's going to be the case with Starfield, but
I think they need something this year.
Absolutely.
They got to put something out.
They have to release something. I mean, they are a private company. They're not publicly held, so they don't have to answer to shareholders, but you do have to pay everyone's salaries. So you would expect something. I think it will be another case of at least we're going to get something announced in a month at E3, and that will come out before the end of the year. I mean, I really think we're due for an Elder Scrolls here. Overdue.
My fantasy team certainly thinks so.
Yep, absolutely.
Damp Towel Man asks what was playing on the TV behind you at the start of the show. That was Everything on PS4.
It's like an attract mode,
And it's
right?
auto attract mode, where when you set it to documentary in the options, it just jumps from object to object, and it downloads the first few paragraphs of their Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
And displays it on the screen.
Yep.
It's kind of a neat thing.
Yeah, so look, again, this is the
It all,
first time
it all
here.
went idle and turned off about halfway through the show. But
this is our first time at this location. We have a lot of kinks we're going to have to work out. Obviously, only one camera for this episode. Usually we have 3. That'll be fixed for next week's episode, or actually maybe even this week's. Who knows when we're going to do the next one. But yeah, first time here. Had some kinks to work out. We'll get them sorted, and next episode will be better.
W. Matthew gets his question for the week. State of Decay 2 seems to have performance issues on the Xbox, but not on PC. The game isn't the only game we're seeing this in. Do you think devs are finally hitting the limits of what the current gen consoles can do, at least in terms of CPU resources? No.
No. I don't. I think some developers are better than others.
Yeah, I think State of Decay 2 is just State of Decay 2.
There's no reason State of Decay should run the way it does.
No.
I mean, you look at what other developers are doing with this old hardware and getting it to run at a rock-solid 30 or in some cases 60. It's just really the hands of the developers working on it. And the team behind State of Decay, for whatever reason, its engine just cannot hang.
Justin Horman asks, what's a game that you feel should be in the Video Game Hall of Fame?
That isn't already?
It isn't. So already in Donkey Kong, Doom, Final Fantasy VII, GTA 3, Halo, Madden, Zelda, Oregon Trail, Pac-Man, Pokemon, Pong, Sims, Sonic, Space Invaders, Space War, Street Fighter 2, Super Mario Brothers, Tetris, Tomb Raider, and WoW.
Wow.
That's a pretty good lineup.
Yeah. That's...
I would
Is
probably...
Super Mario 64 in there?
I think just Super Mario. I think Mario's just in there.
Does that mean that...
I think it's like a whole series is covered by one thing.
Oh.
So like Sonic's in there as Sonic. Madden's in there as Madden. It's not a specific Madden game.
That's kind of weird.
Halo's in there as Halo.
That's kind of weird, I think.
Yeah, it's just they do by franchise.
So basically, what franchise has not been put in there yet that should?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, probably we could look at the nominees from this year that didn't quite make it, and we could probably pick from those.
I'm kind of feeling like maybe God of War earned its place this year.
Maybe.
The other thing I would maybe say would be, I would put Metroid.
Metroid's not in there?
No.
Oh, then absolutely.
I would put Metroid in there. I'm
What about Castlevania?
biased.
Is it in there?
Castlevania's not in there. Castlevania should be in there.
Should be in there. Absolutely.
Metal Gear.
Even though it's probably dead now.
Metal Gear should
Yeah.
be in there.
I'd put in Castlevania before Metal Gear.
So would I, but still, like, Metal Gear probably should be in there.
Yeah. If it hasn't made it in by now, it might be tough, though, because we probably aren't going to see anymore.
You're right. But that's even better.
Well, they'll start,
like, okay,
the thing, too, about the Hall of Fame is that they add a ton of games.
Yeah, they do add many.
Every year. And so eventually they're going to start running out of games, and then you'll start seeing stuff probably like Metal Gear making it in there.
And I would also say StarCraft should be in there.
I would certainly, Castlevania should be in before Madden.
That's a weird lineup. The whole Video Game Hall of Fame thing is weird. Every time they announce that there's new inductees, I'm like, that's still a thing? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't think about it, I guess. Wolfox10JC says, talk about those mechs, Matt. I guess they mean the ones back there. Those are all Combiner Wars from a couple of years ago, and the middle one is a Japanese version of Power Master Optimus Prime with the God Bomber armor on him. So can you see that? I'm looking at the monitor here. Yeah, you can't really see that, but it's left to right. It's Menasor, Superion, God, Jinrai, Defensor, and Bruticus.
There you go.
I can keep putting more robots in the background of these things. If we
Oh,
want.
believe me, he can put robots for days.
Yeah.
You have never seen anything until you've seen Matt Kyle's Transformers collection.
I'll try to get the 2-foot Omega Supreme back there.
It is impressive, to say the least.
Not Cirque says, already asked a question, but I'll give it this. Matt, I know you're a fighting game fan. Have you been playing Dragon Ball Fighters? What are your thoughts on the game if you've played it? I have not played it because I don't really like Dragon Ball. I was too old for Dragon Ball.
I don't really care about it either.
I was, and it really matters how old you were when you first saw Dragon Ball. I've definitely learned that. Like we have our friend, we've talked about him before, about our friend Corrado, who used to be at G4, but he grew up in Italy. and they aired Dragon Ball there. He's the same age as me, but they aired Dragon Ball there when he was a kid, so he loves Dragon Ball because he saw it when he was 8.
Right.
And I saw it when I was 22.
That
And I was
makes a
like, this
big
is
difference.
terrible.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a huge Dragon Ball fan.
It's like watching Sesame Street when you're in your 20s.
So I've not spent $60 on it because I'm just not there yet. I have watched a lot of the tournament footage, like during the various tournaments they've been doing.
Yeah.
It looks really cool. It's too bad that it's dominated by basically 3 different characters for the most part. So basically, like, I can't remember which characters it are. I think it's like Cell and Trunks or somebody. I don't know who anybody is in Dragon Ball.
I don't really either.
But like basically, it's like 2 characters and then a 3rd character. It's almost like it's Marvel vs. Capcom again, all over again, where it's like you need these 2 characters to be compatible, to be competitive, and then so the balance is probably going to change as they add characters and do some tweaks and stuff. So I'm keeping an eye on it, but I don't anticipate playing it anytime soon until the price drops substantially. Like
We've talked about the game a lot on the show.
Like I'll probably get it if it gets like a 50% off price cut for a sale or something at some point. It's just not a priority because I just don't care about the license.
Yep. It makes a big difference. Let's answer one more.
Okay. The J-Bone29 asks, what are your thoughts on the Microsoft job listing for creative director of a brand new series to make Avatar games? For me, hearing this while not hearing about a new studio to make AAA games is extremely disappointing. I guess games involving the Microsoft avatars. They started a new studio to like make games.
Make games for the new avatars?
Based around the avatar.
So Microsoft is kind of following Nintendo's lead with Mii's.
Right.
Essentially.
That's what it sounds like.
I think that's a bad idea.
Yeah,
I think Microsoft should just mandate that any multiplayer game allows you to use the new avatars.
Yeah,
and let the third parties handle all that crap.
As James Cameron said about Alien 3, it's not how I would have done it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
when they said Avatar, that's what I thought they were talking about.
Right.
Like they were making Avatar video games. I'm like,
Right.
Well, yeah, of course. Like
that's what made me think of James Cameron.
Right,
when
right.
he said there. I guess
it's silly.
It's still any movement in terms of Microsoft making games is probably a good thing, but like that's probably not the first place I'd start.
I mean, look, Nintendo's done it. It's like Miitomo, and there's like Find Me.
Right.
Like Find Me was like free.
Yeah, Find Me was
They
just
didn't
like
dedicate a whole studio to making that.
No,
stuff.
it was just an excuse to like use the Street Pass stuff,
Right.
which
Yeah.
was great, man. Those
were some cool times.
E3 was great for that.
It really
like,
was.
I used to like. I finished like all the puzzles. Like every E3, I'm just like, oh, I'll just do all the puzzles this week. It was great. Everybody's got 3DS over there.
Yeah. So
maybe not anymore. I don't know. Now maybe everyone's just carrying a Switch around in their backpack.
Yeah. But I think it's a terrible idea. I don't know why Microsoft would care so much about it. Really, terrible. Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley thinks it's terrible.
I don't know why Microsoft would mandate that or do that, but
it's a weird move. I mean,
they don't look that good.
No, and we've seen the bottom of their shoe.
Right.
It's nothing impressive.
Yep, absolutely. So I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's not.
And I don't think that's going to lead Microsoft to the promised land.
And also, look, the most interesting thing that ever happened with the avatars was when they did 1 versus 100.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that really pulled me in about that. And I don't think most people that I know who have Xbox One don't even realize the avatars are still a thing.
Yeah.
Like they're just not part of the. You have to dig to find them.
They're not like Mii's. Like Nintendo did a good job of branding Mii's and letting people
Right.
know about them, and it built that free-to-play game around them where you got to know them and know how they work.
When they foreground them and they made them
Right.
an avatar,
Yeah.
ironically, they made them this thing that you acknowledged was kind of your representation in the Street Pass stuff and in the Miiverse stuff. I mean, I didn't find it particularly compelling, but at least it was there and it was part of the system and it made you use it and it made you realize, okay, that's me. That's me.
Yeah.
If I see me, I recognize me in the Miiverse kind of thing.
Yep.
And Microsoft is like, I think I have, I think my avatar has been dressed as Batman for the last like 7 years. Like I don't know where he is. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah. So there you go. Both of us think it's a bad idea and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So that'll do it
But it's probably a better idea than Crackdown 3.
Probably. Yeah.
If we made you play either Crackdown 3 or like World of Keflings 2, which one would you pick?
I would still play Crackdown.
All right.
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far. I don't hate it that much.
All right. What if World of Keflings 2 had guns?
Yeah.
There we go.
Probably still Crackdown.
All right.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for GameFace episode 127. I could not be a part of the chat today, so I don't know if any of you guys subscribed through Twitch Prime. If you did, thank you very much.
We'll fix that next week.
Yeah, we're just figuring things out. This is our first episode
Probably
here.
need like something to put things on.
Yeah, that would help.
So, yeah.
Like, I mean, my sheet fell, and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to leave it down there.
Once the trailer of the week hits, everything's
all
in the
bets
air.
are off. Yeah, so we'll be getting things sorted out here. This is our first episode here. We wanted to get up and do an ep for you guys as quick as possible. Moving last week, by the way, was the worst. My legs are still aching. I think I pulled my shoulder. It sucked, but I'm glad it's over with. We are out of our old studio. I am actively looking for a new one, so I'll keep you in tune with all that stuff. Like I was saying earlier, if you guys did subscribe via Twitch Prime, thank you very much. If you haven't, just go click that button above our player. It helps us a ton. But I think that's it. E3 is coming up here in about 4 weeks. We'll start talking about our plans for that in the very near future. As you guys know, the last couple episodes of GameFace before E3, we do huge pre-E3 blowouts, big previews. We'll be doing that again this year. We are going to do our coverage a little bit different from the show this year, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that soon. So on behalf of Matt and Sam and myself, GameFace is up and out.